Hey, how's it going, universe, meta-universe, multi-layered, expansive things? This is the inaugural episode of Zoobox Goes to the Library. Oh, yeah, we talk about books sometimes. We do. Usually it has to correspond with a movie, you know, where these kind of people are like, I ain't reading something. I ain't going to just read a goddamn book. But we decided to make an exception. Because today, there's no movie for this yet. There's no movie for it yet. I hope someday they do something wild and crazy. That'd be great. But we're going to be talking about JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future.
It's simple economics. If you don't buy, you lose out. Now I'm sucking it up.
JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future. Ebook and audiobook Monday now available for pre-order. Purchase immediately on gum.co/JAIHOO.
Written by Sam Hyde. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Dan Profitt. He's great. This guy who's right here, the past and future guest, Dan Profitt.
Hello, everyone.
He wrote a little something on Instagram a couple days ago, and it is kind of the perfect opening and synopsis. So I'm just gonna read your thing. So we will be discussing the 2020 ebook, audiobook, JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future, written and read by Sam Hyde of the criminally underrated comedy troupe $1 Million Extreme. Take a trip with us into the wasteland of the near and far future in the most hilarious and horrifying sci-fi dystopia ever conceived in fiction. Too verbose, irreverent, multi-layered, and bizarre to be summed up in a paragraph, this satire of modernity taken to the extreme deserves to have a scalpel taken to it. Is it mad genius from a mind of an outcast comedy legend, or just the ramblings of a man on the verge of coming unhinged himself? Both, maybe. We'll find out next week. We'll find out tonight on Zoobox Goes to the Library.
Or perhaps we have already found out, and the audience is traveling from a different time to perceive it in a completely different way. Maybe they're traveling, in fact, from a completely different dimension, the DMT dimension.
This is very possible. What's up, freak bitches? I see you out there eating your vegan feasts.
Yeah, right before I came in here, I was doing some anti-racist Tai Chi, and Joe Rogan came in and actually gave me a 35-minute lecture on how I'm just a biological mammal that should eat mushrooms and get closer to God.
Yeah, and like he says,
don't be a pussy, don't be a dick, and choke the shit out of guys. Choke the shit out of guys. Don't kiss them.
Yeah, that is the absolute wisdom of 1,000 years. The machine goddess didn't like to hear it, but if it sounds at home like we're speaking in complete gobbledygook, that is because that this book is so layered in its verbosity, intentionally over verbose, so that everything is kind of hard to listen to at some point. There's so much going on. There are so many little phrases that convey so much all at once, and they're all happening one right after another, that sometimes, like Sam said in the reading over Christmas,
this book is so fried because the whole thing is like packed with that shit. So after you get through 1/3 of it, it's just like it becomes very like textural and abstract. It's like psychic driving or something like that. Like the words don't even matter anymore.
And it's like, well, how can that be something interesting to listen to? It's because it's hilarious. It is so fucking funny.
It's complete stream of consciousness. Like, it is like the distillation of 10 years of being very online. Like, it is, if you are like kind of came up in the past 10 years in like internet culture and about like, you know, the coming culture war, everything that's been going on, everything that's kind of out in the open now. Like, and to Sam Hyde's credit and $1 Million Extreme's credit, they were kind of way ahead of the curve with their comedy, kind of attacking these subjects. It's very much that. It's very, well, like I said, it's stream of consciousness, and it's so dense with footnotes and parentheticals that go on for pages that it is so easy to lose the thread of the actual story, even though the story itself is not that complicated.
And dude, when I wrote this, I wrote like, there's like 2 or 3 points. There's like 2 or 3 points where I started down some really This is written by me and John Pelech and a couple other people, by the way. But there were a bunch of points where I started down some really important path where I was like, yeah, I'll just conclude this later. And then later on, I forgot to tie it off or to make it come back to the main, the A-line plot. So there's parts in the book later on where it's like, you might be wondering what happened with the big race. Turns out JAIHOO won it all, like wrapping it up in one sentence.
Because I was like trying to go back in my mind, like kind of like, okay, what is this fucking story? Like, what is it actually? And trying to like kind of like divine that. And it's when you really start breaking it down, it's not that complicated. It's just everything that's in it, like you said. Like it's overly verbose on purpose and goes on wild tangents about things that have seemingly nothing to do with what's going on in the story at that moment. And it's very tangential, but that's the best stuff about it, though. Like that's because he's clearly just like he found like a way to kind of satirize, I think, popular science fiction of the moment of the past 10 years, and then wrap it into everything that everybody's been talking about, like in terms of it's like the most extreme red pill, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And when you say that it's stream of consciousness, that's true in one way, but also he took the time to have it very well edited and honed. When he has that list of people at the beginning that I hope you cut to right now.
Yes.
Jordan Cornbread and all those people. Those are actual people. When you can search these Reddit threads where throughout the years Sam has been posting chunks of JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future and being like, hey guys, what's wrong with this? What's funny? What's not working? And he actually seemed to credit a lot of the people who helped him out along the way putting this story together. And that's why I think it actually works, because while it is clearly, fucking clearly stream of consciousness from Sam Hyde, he also took the time to make it thoughtful and to have people comb through it and find inconsistencies and find stuff that wasn't actually funny and iron it out.
Yeah, and I think that's like I did not know that those guys were like from Reddit threads and stuff, because it has a kind of a crowdsourced feel, and that's kind of their whole project, I suppose, in terms of what they've been doing over the past couple of years. But it makes sense because it touches on all of the points that you would find in a Reddit thread, like funny guys and Reddit threads that like to shit posts and stuff like that. It's very much like that. And that's kind of cool that he did that he, I guess, crowdsourced the story to a certain degree, or crowdsourced the editing, the punch-ups. That's really interesting. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, it seems to be, unless it was just Sam Hyde with about 47 different accounts, like talking to himself on Reddit, which I can imagine too. But as we were saying right before we started the call, I found it ridiculously difficult to take notes on JAIHOO, because not only, like you said, you'll have footnotes within footnotes that have parentheticals that go inside of parentheticals that make you lost on where you're going, but also it's just kind of, I started to think, like, if we remark on every funny thing that Sam Hyde says, we're going to literally just recite the entire book.
Yeah.
And we'll get to the reciting, but we'll try to talk more about what the book is about, and why it's funny, and why I love it so much, and why I dragged you into listening to it a couple of times, because I think it just actually says a lot about what we're doing. Sam Hyde has the knack of taking a look at what we're doing collectively right now as a society and threading it through its most extreme main line all the way until it splats against the wall like a bug, and showing you all the guts of that little bug. And that's what he's doing with our entire civilization, put forward first 50 years and then like 150 years.
Well, exactly, because that's the whole thing. It's like the extreme of every kind of paranoid Reddit thread you would read. It's the extreme of it. He takes it to like its most, not logical conclusion, but he takes it to this place and ends up giving a very interesting commentary on that because of it, and kind of shows the circular nature of it, the weird hypocrisies that are in there, and he does it through this great character JAIHOO, who's just like this, almost like he's almost an aw shucks guy, right? Like he's like this, he's like an innocent kind of dude that's just, he drank the Kool-Aid, he bought into it, even to the end of the book, he's just like, love that Khaleesi. Like, she fucks him over. He has this girlfriend that's kind of a thread throughout the story, and she treats him like garbage, and he's like the beta male, the simp guy. And even at the very end, after his entire experience of enlightenment and becoming a hologram and a cyborg and like all this stuff, he's just like, really disappointed me when she left me. Like, because she told him she's gonna leave him for like other guys. He's like, this has been fun. This has been cool. I know you did all this kind of for me, but and I love that because it's like this. It is this. It's not even just an archetypal through line for a character like that. It feels like a riff on a Steven Spielberg type of story. Like, that's who that character reminds me of. He's like taken out of a Steven Spielberg thing. Because it was a couple weeks ago, and it was before I had finished it, before I had like really gotten to see the whole piece. I was like, oh, the Rosetta Stone for this feels like it's kind of like Ready Player One, which makes sense because that's like 2012. Snow Crash, the cyberpunk book. And then I started reading more of it, and I was like, oh, whoa, this is like way more than that. Because there's elements of like Kafka, the trials in here.
God tells him no one could enter this door. And now I'm going to close it. Some commentators have pointed out that the man came to the door of his own free will.
And we're supposed to swallow all that? It's all true?
We needn't accept everything as true, only as necessary.
Where JAIHOO just never is told what the fuck is going on the entire time, even though everybody's just constantly shifting him to different dimensions and different places and different times, and he never telling him why, but just insisting that he needs to be there.
And the debtor's prison that they send him to, where he can't pay for his French fries, so he's like violently arrested by Officer, aka Savior.
Yeah.
And the drift racing cop who drifts him to jail.
You're in deep shit now, kid. Us safety heroes don't take too kindly to low-life debtors like yourself. Hands behind your back, you're coming with me. I'm protecting you. I'm protecting you. 3, 2, 1. Hands behind your back. 10, 9, 8, 7. This ain't a promise, it's a threat. 6, 5. Respect me. 4, 3, 2. Don't make me do this. 1. Put your hands behind your back right now. Time's almost up. 5, 4, 3. Do it. 2. Put him behind your back, citizen. 1. A safety flashbang went off, and JAIHOO seizured his way down to the floor.
And then also, I know more about fucking drift racing now than I've ever known in my life. I didn't. It's like 6 months ago, I didn't know what a tile blow-off valve is, but now I know. This police officer takes him to debtor's prison, where the way to get out of debtor's prison is to take this worthless cryptocurrency and then gamble it up into this slightly less worthless cryptocurrency and try to keep gambling until you pay your quote-unquote debt to society. And you're right, the element of Kafka, of like the never-ending struggle against this ridiculous bureaucracy that won't even explain itself.
Yeah, exactly. And
then it just gets worse in the future.
Yeah, it gets more convoluted. There's just more layers, and now there's not just secular stuff, there's esoteric stuff. There's just all of this bullshit on top of bullshit on top of bullshit, which ends up being kind of the whole point of it. And what I do like and I like this about Sam Hyde in general, like, he's after everybody. Like, there's not a target. Like, he's not picking a side necessarily. I mean, he's going after the fucking the libertarians just as hard as he's going up against like the woke people. One of my favorite like little instances of the book is when he's talking to Necromancer Z or Bice, and they're talking about like the cryptocurrency and all this stuff, and Bice is like a hardcore capitalist, and he works for capitalism, and he makes a reference to Atlas Shrugged.
At one point, Bice invoked John Galt, then admitted he'd never read the book, in the same sentence.
Like most libertarians, like,
Yes,
Like the people that worship Ayn Rand, but they've never read a single fucking word she's ever written. Like, and it just actually made me belly laugh because I was like, that is like, that's so fucking dead on, like right there.
And Yahoo is so committed to his liberal values that he signed over 1,000 MoveOn.org petitions. But all that capital is M and Bice, aka Necromancer Z, have to do to get him to literally bash in a room full of Haitian children's heads with a baseball bat. It's just like give him this like Matrix fucking architect speech.
Yeah.
And like every
it's literally the architect from the Matrix. Yeah.
And like almost every person of authority in the movie slips into like an architect number at some point. Like he cribs from the Matrix, specifically the architect bit, so fucking often. It's fucking ridiculous.
Well, this is another thing I noticed, like, because as it exists right now, like if you go to Gumroad, and I'll have a link in the description, please go support the boys over there. It's like it almost feels like they're different. Like every part feels like a different satire. Like the last part, I was like, well, that's definitely the Matrix. Like the whole last part is like fairly, like kind of loosely structured around the Matrix. Like kind of the broad general idea of the Matrix, especially once you get to the last chapter, ending, beginning. Like that feels very much like he's a Neo character, like more than he had been in previous chapters of the book. Like you could make the argument, I suppose, that that's kind of the point, that's the through line, but it's like very specific. Like no, this is like the one character all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden. It was earned, but I noticed that because the first part's like Ready Player One, Initial D. It's like kind of more like fast and fun and like a lot like quippy and like, because when I first talked to you about it, I was like, dude, this would be like tons of, like everybody would love this book. It's fucking hilarious. And I read the rest of it and I was like, no, maybe not so much. Like it's definitely not for everybody. But that first 3 hours is very like, I think accessible to a lot of people. Yeah. Like a lot of people. It's not until you start getting into like you said, like the stuff with the DMT zone and all the stuff that happens in part 2, which is like chapters 11 through 14. And then part 3 is like very much like the Matrix, and you start kind of getting the real sense. Everything starts coming together to a certain degree, I suppose. But
what does come together? I do want to point out, without too many spoilers this early in the episode, but we will do spoilers later on.
Yeah.
So how do you fucking have spoilers for a fucking story like this? But if you go into the actual book, there's more. I think there might be one more. Or Sam, if you're out there listening to this, you should do the one last audio file of the audio book, which will include the final chapter of the book, in which Yahoo like completely turns everything around and it changes everything.
Yeah, it's it's chapter 21, ending/beginning.
Yeah.
Which is weird because it's like 3-4 pages long, and I was like, why isn't that in there? And maybe there's a reason. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason, because it's like, I think if I understand correctly, it is like a work in progress. Like they have not finalized everything.
I think they've pretty much finalized everything, but if you go further into the book, they have like the credit section is pretty long. He has like a really extended blurb for everybody, and then there's a whole section with unused ideas.
Yep.
Where they're fucking hilarious ideas that I guess a lot of people from Reddit or Sam came up with that didn't get used, like Yahoo travels back in time and a meteorite hits Europe and destroys Europe, and then when he goes back to the future, we've like, because Europe has been destroyed and white people haven't been in the way to hold everyone back, we're like exploring the stars and shit.
That would be great. And he's also got Yahoo travels to the set of SNL in the future, only to find out it's been overrun by lame, unfunny right-wing comedians and writers. He's sent on a mission to free Lena Dunham and Jimmy Fallon from Guantanamo Bay by drifting past the guards into their cells and bringing them back to Hollywood so they can save comedy. That would be amazing, actually. And then he fights Syrian rebels. Like, yeah. Also, he even has a section that says things I forgot to write.
Yeah, see, I haven't even like read that stuff because my primarily I've taken it in while I've been working. That's when I'm working is when I have time to listen to stuff, and so I ended up listening to the audiobook of this probably, and I'm not exaggerating, in whole. I probably listened to it about 18 times. over the last 4 months because as soon as I heard it, I fell in love with it. It was the freshest fucking thing that I've heard in a long time. It was funny, it was poignant, and it was ridiculous, and it held my attention. And like we were talking about, it's something that you can like switch your mind off to, and then come back into whatever thing you come back into at that moment. You don't need to know where it came from or where it's going. You just need to know that in the moment is very hilarious.
Oh,
and
yeah, there's so many. Yeah.
Work and actually find the threads that actually connect all the stuff.
Yeah, if you're like in a vacuum, there are just so many things that are, and it's distracting. Like, if I were to like give like a criticism, that would be the one thing. It's just like it is hard to follow. It's hilarious, but on a first time, it's something I would recommend people go and like. Probably listen to the audiobook and then maybe go read the book, actually. Go read the text version because there's so many accompaniments and pictures, and they did a great job like kind of changing up text styles and like adding like weird little things here and there. There's all sorts of extra shit in the book. Although I would say what you get out of the audiobook, you get an extra layer, and that's Sam Hyde. That is Sam Hyde basically, in my opinion, this is my opinion, increasingly getting frustrated with recording. There are moments where he's just like, he becomes, it's probably not fair to say, and maybe it's a completely intentional thing. He becomes increasingly more aggressive as the book goes on, like when he's doing parentheticals, whenever he does the interacts, like he's being like way more, and and then every once in a while he'll just start like swearing, you know.
Chewing gum very loudly.
Oh, dude, that I was cracking up so hard. He's like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna, yeah.
Oh, the gum. And you're right. Like when I'm just in the garage working and packing up boxes and stuff, and I have it on, and I'm in my own little world, and it's this thing that I enjoy that I've listened to a million times. It seems very normal, all the shit that I'm listening to, especially the stuff at the end. And then Caitlin will come in to like grab some eggs or something, and I'll be like, what the fuck am I listening to right now?
Dude, I had the same thing because a couple weeks ago, I was just trying to get through. I was trying to get through it, so I had it on my phone, and I would just be walking around the house doing stuff and like making dinner, and I had it up, and my wife just like fucking came around the corner. She's like, "What the fuck is this? Like, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I forgot you're fucking lame." No, but yeah, you become immediately self-aware. You're like, oh, this is not for everybody.
This is not for normal people. There's something damaged about me that makes me enjoy this on a level. But like at the end, when he finally meets God, and God has like these weird multiple personalities, and he keeps like turning into a valley girl or something, right? And then he's like speaking like a gangster that's going to...
Is your butt a pussy? You take it up the ass, boy.
And then he starts like just straight up reading gay erotica about like pausing another dude with HIV.
I can't hold back anymore, so I push into you deeper than before, deeper than ever. And as I feel my cock pop in your inner ring, it explosions, sending volley after volley of thick, highly toxic cum into your guts. Directly deep into your body as I pump my high viral load into you. You moan, and then I feel your cock pulse and hot cum shoot between us, coating my chest with your seed, as I had just done to your arse walls. I whisper in your ear, while you are still recovering with my cock in you, that I'd just given you the gift, and you are a part of my club forever.
And that was when Caitlin was coming to grab the eggs, and I was like, I hope that she's like distracted with Theo, or like off in her own little world, or just actively ignoring what's coming out of the speaker right now, because Jesus Christ, what am I listening to? But when you're in the vacuum of that moment of the story, it makes sense, and it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you can't... I guess, I mean, it's kind of just... Do you think, like, I kind of open with saying this. Do you agree that it is kind of like you have to be kind of pretty closely familiar with, like, internet culture to really understand, I would say, like, most of the references?
Yeah, I mean, like you pointed out, it's kind of an extremely online work. And, dude, at this point, I'm not really an extremely online person, but I'm
me either.
of an online person that I can get what's going on. I know enough to like Google certain references and figure it out. But like when he says shit like people who have cool and sexy Depop, like I don't know what a fucking Depop is. Okay, I had to look that shit up, and it doesn't interest me at all. It's like some fashion app or some shit.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, how do you fucking know about all this shit? And it's because he like spent time in LA and he spent time, you know, in actual show business dealing with all these fucking vapid people who do stupid shit, who are completely absorbed in their own little world of absolute nothing. And that's kind of what JAIHOO'S all about, is just the madness of being in this totally vapid, materialistic world, and project that out 100 years into a point where like advertising takes over your entire consciousness and, you know, speaks to you personally. Like a basketball player comes in and looks you in the eye and speaks to you directly in your own voice and tells you to buy Under Armour, and then you like snap back to reality and you're like, oh shit, I need to buy some Under Armour.
Yeah.
The scary shit about Sam Hyde's comedy is that he always makes fun of that being in 2070, after the paradigm shift he always talks about. That shit's going to happen in like 5 years, dude.
It's like
always
out. Sam Hyde is the Alex Jones of comedy, where everybody's like 15 years later, you're like, fucking Alex Jones, he was right. God damn it.
Well, yeah, when he did his 2070 paradigm shift in like 2014.
2070, future, now. What?
He was saying stupid shit at the end when he's making his predictions.
Most of the major cities will be replaced with vast pleasure domes used exclusively by the Excelsiites, who are the neo-upper class, while the displaced hordes of lower-class depth grovelers will live underground in tiered cities, endlessly toiling away for nuggets of neoplasmin, race riots, extreme racial tension and unrest. Sorry, in 2070, gay people are going to be allowed to get married. Get used to it. 2070, gay men have actually developed reproductive organs inside of their area, and a new generation of children are born from inside gay men. State-enforced homosexuality. I don't have a problem with that. It's equal. Facebook as your birth certificate. Mac iPads built into every school desk for every child. You're probably thinking this is some pretty deep stuff, and you're right.
And, you know, some of that stuff ostensibly has come true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of the stuff that's in JAIHOO, I don't think is that far away from being a total reality, especially the stuff that he talks about in terms of advertising, like logos that you look at it and it's a shape and color that makes you feel a certain way that you don't understand and sparks a craving in you that you didn't expect just from looking at the logo. Like, how fucking far away are we from knowing psychology and the brain well enough from fucking marketing people to have that kind of access to your psyche?
It's already happening. I mean, what do you think? Like Instagram is probably, in a weird way, it's like very insidious, because I always hear people talk about the marketing on Instagram, like how I've heard more and more over the past like year or so, people just being like, I don't know why I bought this. It just got advertised me on Instagram like 100 times. I clicked it. I was like, oh, okay. I hear that actually a lot, and not like from people I know. I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff like throughout the week, and I hear people talk about that, like kind of like passively joking about it, but they actually did it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's interesting. And I think it has to do with just the way the psychological triggers of imagery and the way, just everything you were saying. Like they've kind of mastered this thing where it's like, I don't even know what the right way to put it is. It's just like, it's like that, the repetition of the images, the repetition of a singular style, and it just crawls in people's brains, and they can't like get away from it. It becomes like this undeniable kind of need, this like lust for material possessions and stuff. And listen, and I'm definitely a victim of this. I'm definitely guilty of this. Like, if people don't know, I have a small problem with buying movies, and although I don't get advertised to, I have to go out of my way to find that shit. But lately, though, I've noticed advertisements alerting me to sales all the time, and I'm just like, and I've been able to kind of move past it, but I definitely noticed that it's had an effect on me, because now I'm always searching for like sales. I'm like looking on Reddit for, like, I never did this before. Yes. Never did this before the past 2 years. I would always bought movies, I always collected movies and stuff like that, but I never felt like compelled in the same way where I feel like I'm making dumb decisions with my credit card. It's
dumb
the first
decisions with credit card, and now you have so many more dumb decisions to make. And one of the things that he brings up is like people used to talk about how everything is being commodified now, but now literally everything is being commodified with like NTFs. And there's at one point where he's talking about Kylesi's poetry, and he's like, well, how can you put a price on poetry? And then he says, buy poetry coin. And it's like literally, yes, you can literally put a price on anything. We could sell this podcast as an NTF and put a price on the experience of watching this podcast or being able to distribute it. Or like I was joking about taking videos of my slaughters and like digitizing that video file, and like you can own the final moments of the life of that animal as well as a box of meat from that animal. I mean, that kind of shit is like straight out of the pages of JAIHOO.
No, I was gonna say, like, you are actually the Dark Harbinger. Like, you're the guy that's gonna like make things. You're gonna push the envelope. Be like, yo, you want to see the last moments of this animal's life? People are gonna get a hunger for it. They're gonna get a thirst.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you something.
We're gonna be getting black market NFT or NTFs or whatever the fuck they're called from China of people being executed.
If I was savvy enough and I knew how to set those fucking things up and deal with the blockchain and shit, I would do like 5 of them right now just to see how it would go. And I guarantee you I'd probably make about $26,000 off of each one of them. Because there's some fucking dude out there, there's some rich dude who needs to launder some money through art. And nobody wants to, you can't, it's harder and harder to launder money through art anymore because literally everybody knows that nobody wants to pay $4 million for like a canvas that's covered in some guy's urine. Like nobody fucking wants that. So they found this new avenue to basically dump their fucking dirty money tax free. And
well, that's why, like,
tokens.
Well, and that's like the same thing that they talk about a lot in JAIHOO too. Is like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is obviously like a big running joke or a theme in the thing. And people would do the same thing. That was always what they'll say. The regulators like, oh well, people are going to launder money through Bitcoin, and everybody like has this wild fantasy that Bitcoin is going to be like this currency of the people, controlled by the people. You're out of your fucking minds. If you're paying attention, banks are buying into it. Like, that stuff is going to be regulated in 10 years, and everything else is going to be outlawed. There's going to be 3 of them, and everything else is going to be outlawed.
Right.
But, anyways.
I mean, like people, and there's a bunch of people in Keene that just got popped by the FBI because they had their own cryptocurrency, like ATMs and shit.
No shit, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
In fact, one of them was the transsexual woman of whiteness who ran for sheriff.
Oh, okay.
And so if actually, I'm sorry, she's a hate white.
A hate white, yeah.
That's her race, is hate white, and she ran for sheriff. And yeah, again, straight out of the pages of JAIHOO, except for the fact that in JAIHOO, Keene, New Hampshire is a laser ghetto named Little Saigon now, and it spawned the epic, legendary rival drift racer Trong Dum Goon.
Trang was a tough street kid from the laser ghettos of what was once Keene, New Hampshire, now known as Little Saigon. He grew up on a diet of shoes, bugs, and lint, so JAIHOO knew he was hungry to win a race. It was a hunger multiplied by the fact that Goon shared his home with 6,000 relatives, and each mouth was hungrier than the last.
Who drives a Honda tuk-tuk. Now, if you don't know what a tuk-tuk is, just Google that and imagine the vehicle tuk-tuk made into modified into a Honda drift race car. It's one of those like 3-wheel taxi cab things that they use in like Asia and India. Dude, little shit like that. Like,
oh, I laughed so hard when he mentioned Keene, New Hampshire. I was like, oh no, I forgot, because you forget sometimes. I'm like, oh, he's like from around there. So like,
yeah, it's from Fall River, Massachusetts, kid.
Yeah.
But we can stop for a minute and just take a moment to talk about the fucking legendary drift race. That is the chapter that sold me on the book. That's the one that it's one of the 2 that he reads in the Christmas reading.
Yes,
and it's one of the ones that is prominent and stands out in the. I remember the original reading of it. Like, I think it was 2015 because
yes, it is. Yeah.
I was either I think I was in New Mexico when I first read it. And then I watched it again when I lived in Manchester, New Hampshire the next year when I moved home. And it was very similar to one of the other live readings that he did called Billy the Clown.
Chapter 4, Billy's Big Black Cloud. The next day, Billy went to school again, absolutely sick with grief. All his friends knew there was something wrong with him, and they all knew it would be better not to awaken whatever rage was lurking by trying to help him out.
Where Billy the Clown ends up, or I don't remember the details of that, but I do remember at one point he ends up in a carbon fiber drift race car that has like a carbon fiber milk crate that he sits on with carbon fiber glass and carbon fiber gasoline, so that like everything's made out of carbon fiber, so it's so light that it drifts. And like Sam Hyde's obsession with drift race, like what's the obsession with the initial D in drift racing shit? What is that?
I don't know, but like it's in a lot of like when he first started doing like vlogs and stuff, he was constantly like doing like go out to like abandoned parking lots and stuff and like just whip around in his car and then pull up to the camera and like talk for 10 minutes and then just like do donuts and shit. So I think he's like into cars and stuff.
Oh yeah, he's into cars, and cars like car humor has always been part of Sam Hyde's like overall repertoire of thing like wells to go to. Like he always hates the car that he has. He wants to physically kill the people who designed the car that he owns, and you know, he like wants to be able to do cool drift race maneuvers, but he's always in like a fucking Toyota Prius or something.
Yeah, driving through New Hampshire.
Yeah. He's just like beating the shit out of whatever car he had. There's a great skit of him and Nick Rochford just taking these couple of pieces of crap and just driving them like it's like in a parking lot, just like beating the shit out of a car in a parking lot. And you know, he and Nick can pull comedy out of that kind of shit.
I feel like, you know, it's got, because he's like our age. He's in this age range. I feel like it's got to be. I bet you some of it's like, because I felt like when I was listening to the book, I was like, oh, some of this is like Speed Racer, like the Wachowski Speed Racer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's kind of what that is, like this extreme version of like, you know, circuit racing, which is drifting and floating and doing weird jumps and your car flips over and all sorts of crazy anime bullshit. And then there's Initial D. Like the more toned down version of Speed Racer. It's a little bit more realistic, you know?
Yeah.
I never got into Initial D, but I remember being a teenager and people like watching Initial D, and I just like didn't get it. I was like, why would you watch a show about drift racers? I grew up watching like, you know, the Fast and Furious movies. I never got them. Like I never was very interested in them. So like, but like that was part of our like our youth culture, like for our age demographic. Like there's so many people that got into that stuff. I hear all the time people like, dude, Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift fucking rules. You can say what you want about the other movies, dude. But Tokyo Drift fucking rules. I'm like, all right, I'll take your word for it, man. I guess now I should go back and check it out.
I've seen Tokyo Drift this day. I'm sure you have, but
I've seen like I think like parts of it. I've never watched the whole thing.
Wow, it's
rare. Surprising.
A movie you've seen parts of and never watched the whole thing.
It is pretty rare because I've seen all of the Fast and Furious movies except the entirety of Tokyo Drift, and they released the runtime of the new one. It was like 3 hours and 5 minutes. I was like, thank Christ. I was like, that's gonna ward off my morbid curiosity. There's no way I'm watching a 3 hour fucking Fast and Furious movie, like smash cut to 2 months later in the theater.
The exact demographic that is made for. Like, okay, it brings up two specific memories. One of them was at a Metallica concert where me and a couple buddies were there to watch Metallica. We were like 18. It was a great fucking day. There was a girl sitting next to us. Linkin Park was opening for Metallica. And this girl was so fucking into Linkin Park. She was sitting there in her seat like this. And I was like, damn. We couldn't stop laughing. Like, this girl was so into Linkin Park. So that girl is the demographic for the 3 hour Fast and the Furious. And then also, when I worked at Vermont Packing House, there was a dude who went to see Kid Rock live at some like county fair or some shit, and he was like, dude, He's like one of the best singers, dude. He does everything. He does every style, dude. Rock, rap, fucking. He sings country songs, dude. Everything he does.
He's a self-taught musician who can play every instrument in his backup band. Kid Rock lives large.
He's one of the best singers I ever heard. That guy is who the Fast and the Furious is for. And it's like this idiocracy type shit where, like, talk about an inspiration for JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future. I mean, JAIHOO is like as if Idiocracy was written by an angry millennial who got off his meds and was figuring out how fucked up the world was.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. I mean, it does definitely have that same kind of vibe. Actually, I'd say if you were the type of person that liked Idiocracy, at least give JAIHOO a spin. At least give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a little heady, and it's going to be very offensive, and it's going to be offensive because it doesn't put on any liberal kid gloves.
No. But I'll say this though, like his targets are wide and varied.
Let's say this. It sounds like it was written by a kid who just saw Idiocracy and then started casually browsing alt-right forums.
Alt-right and 4chan and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is. Like that's definitely like the through line of the types of jokes that are in there. 100%.
Yeah, so, I mean, right off the bat, like especially in the climate that people live in today, and if you're somebody who knows me personally, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to listen to JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future," and then you're like, "Oh God, Danny thinks this is funny." Like, yeah, I do think this is funny. I think that the world that we live in right now is absolutely fucking ridiculous. We have bought and paid for "We Are the World." That's what we think is going to happen right now. That's what we have bought into because we have been watching fucking 1 hour procedural dramas and 30-minute comedies for the last fucking 40 years. Mm-hmm. We have no connection to fucking reality anymore. And people who do, and people who point out the grim realities of reality and how fucked up things can and will get if you don't start taking life fucking seriously, that's what he shows in this book. And he doesn't pull any fucking punches that you get on the Daily Show. Okay, and I think like you said, he does go ahead and makes fun of everybody. In fact, there's a little poking fun at even like Richard Spencer and that kind of shit in there.
Oh yeah, when he's part of like the algorithm, but he's like the aggressive part or something. Yes. What is the name of the
they're meeting computers.
Computers.
And Necromancer Z and JAIHOO are they've both won the book ripping contest. JAIHOO won by one book. And
ripping the Dewey Rames version of the Bible, which is the Catholic version of the Bible. Yeah.
We'll get to the book ripping contest before this is all over. But they're like doing this like contest of genuflection in front of the president, and the president. To give the listener the idea, the president is actually just like a computer algorithm, and everybody basically gets to meet them for like accomplishing mundane shit in your life. So it's not really that big of a deal that they're meeting the president, but they're also doing this one-upmanship.
JAIHOO saluted, just like he'd seen in a movie once, while Bice bowed and put his hand across his heart. Then JAIHOO attempted to stand at attention in the cramped diner-style seat. He was able to stand about halfway up, making his whole body rigid, but doing his best to convey honor and dignitas. Bice took one knee and spun in place while doing an elaborate curtsy to exemplify respect and show a restrained gratitude.
But they're also trying to, while they're doing this genuflection, not look too overeager, like to impress, as if they're doing some sort of like East Asian honor ceremony or something. It's like, what the fuck? Like the randomness of shit like that is just, that is right up my sense of humor's alley. That touches on notes of the state and the kids in the hall.
Actually, yeah, 100%, yeah.
That gleeful, and also, if you want to, if you're a boomer, you can take it all the way back to Monty Python. But my generation was the state and the kids in the hall.
Kids in the hall, yeah.
Kind of sketch comedy that's just absolutely ridiculous, unabashed, and will tear the throat out of any sort of convention that you're talking about at that moment.
Yeah.
And like you said, each chapter jumps through its own little thing, and he's just taking stabs at modernity over and over again. And the stabs that he takes are fucking brilliant, and they're hilarious, and I'm not ashamed for laughing at this shit, and you shouldn't be either.
No, because I think, like, you don't have to, like, even agree. Like, say, like, you don't have to agree with his assertions to find certain things funny. And this is something I think we've completely lost the plot on as a culture when it comes to comedy. That is, it's there to make you think about something. It's there to skewer something. It doesn't have to fucking align with your worldview. Like, it just doesn't. Like, I agree with a lot of the stuff, most of the, I would say, observations he makes in this. Like, yes, like, that's how I feel about things. That's how I feel about the encroaching kind of consumerist, even like capitalistic, just the weight crushing down on everyday people until they just give up and they become somebody like JAIHOO, just who accepts anything that they're told, and this is just the way it is. And I love that when he goes into the future and stuff, and everything's all these like woke AI programs that are supposed to be like the most perfect version of being like a progressive individual, and they're not even woke enough for JAIHOO. Like, JAIHOO's constantly like, what do you mean brown skin?
Yeah, he's
brown.
He's literally pulling out his pocket word police on like the
machine goddess and
and the fractal elves, and like, you know,
yeah,
and even God. Like, he meets God, and God, the character of God himself, is like a broken, completely scattered, schizophrenic character. But JAIHOO starts stamping his foot and trying to think of an r/atheist post that he can use against God himself.
Yes.
And he can't think of one, so he just starts going, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me."
And if you know, and if you're an online person, you know this is like debate bro 101 shit. Like, it is Vosh, it's Destiny, it's the Surfs, it's like all of these dudes. I would say Caleb, not so much.
Caleb Malpin?
Yeah, I don't like him, but I do think he at least I think his what he says about some of the excuses he makes for some real horrible shit happening in the world is a little weird. But yeah. I do think he actually knows his history. He's not
Caleb, you're a tanky.
Yeah, you're a tanky, buddy.
Being called that, you're a tanky.
Like, but I do trust that he actually knows like history. Instead of like skimming a Wikipedia page while he's talking to somebody to say, "No, dude, you're wrong."
Yes, and Vaush would be the type to skim a Wikipedia. Vaush would be the type to be in a debate with God about the existence of God and like appeal to his chat. Be like, "Chat, can you bring up the Wikipedia for God?"
You know how stupid you look to them? You are meeting every negative stereotype of the left right now because you look like a bunch of petulant children who are unironically angry at the idea that discipline is a positive character trait.
And think that because he has like a 130 IQ that he can, or he appears to, that he can pull that kind of shit off. I mean, at some point you're just flying on rhetoric. And I think that, you know, when you said that you envisioned JAIHOO as Vaush, that totally made sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know that he's like, you know, half Korean, and like, and I understood that, but like, that's like this dumb woke asshole. Like, that's the closest thing that I could like think to in my mind's eye. I was just like, that's who that is to me. And then you see like his girlfriend and stuff. Like, there's a famous picture of Vaush's like. She looks like Shrek, I guess. I don't want to be an asshole, but like that's Khaleesi. Like,
yeah,
that's, you know, like,
yeah. and he is woke and argumentative about all the right things at all the right times, but she still has to sleep with other men. And
which they have an very open relationship. So that's what happens. I just wanted
to bring up, though, you're actually you're being a little bit bigoted. You might want to take a 100 milligram dose of fluoridated changa so that you can realign yourself and your chakras, because actually JAIHOO is Splatinx, or Sparinx, sorry, which is he is Korean, but he's Hispanic identifying.
That's true. I'm sorry, that's my bad. Apologies to JAIHOO, the fictional character. I did not mean to besmirch you or your people. I also like that, though, like, it's like part of this woke hell where it's still okay to talk like mad shit about Asian people. Like, you know, because that's been like kind of the meme for a couple years, where it's like, well, you know, they're minorities, but like not really, because they're successful.
Well, and also, I mean, if you really want to get meta about it, you could bring up the fact that, you know, amongst the Asian community itself, there's a huge amount of racism for other types of Asian people.
Yeah, dude, I used to live
something that
next
white
to
people don't actually know because they don't actually spend any real time amongst communities of color, is that in communities of color, there are balkanizations of smaller groups that fucking hate each other.
Yes, actually more than you could possibly imagine. Dude, I worked with guys from South America, Haiti, Korea. I've lived in neighborhoods, like very diverse neighborhoods and stuff like that. It is not it's not the abstraction that people like, not to bring them up again, but people like Vaush have. They have this like kind of like fucking like pedestal. They put people on a pedestal without any real life like interaction or understanding of any of that stuff. Or how just people in general, how poor people operate. Like, it's just like, I'm a poor person, I can say this, okay? Like, but like, it's just like there's a whole world out there that they don't understand, and they don't like, and those people have no interest in conforming to some sort of idealistic version of themselves, because nobody does. Nobody does. And I kind of like that the book gets into that a little bit. Like, they actually kind of start talking about those things, and how actually all the weird stuff where they're like, was specifically with black people, and they're like, some weird stuff happened with Africa, and you know, they wouldn't, and also Islam.
Footnote: unfortunately, by 2177, the Muslim world has been reduced to ash. It's a long story, but suffice it to say, many of their adherents had ethical qualms about worshipping MasterCard in the same breath as Allah. And so it was pretty much unilaterally decided to end their relationship with the company, which is a State Department euphemism for nuclear genocide.
And, you know, it's like, that's totally the bit, man, is that, you know, and it's okay. They don't say what happened to Africa, but it's okay whatever happened to Africa, because now we have Africa Remix.
Yeah, and then we have Skippies, too. The Skippies, which I think, like, if somebody were to listen to this and be like a normie, that is the thing that they're going to be like, this is really fucked up.
In the main courtyard, a group of Skippies plays yiffy ball. Their sleek, tall, powerful green bodies easily slide in, out, and between each other in a primal dance of pure athleticism.
Yeah,
this is really fucked up, because it's a
Skippies are a very obvious stand-in for black people.
Yeah,
the most racist caricature of black people that you could absolutely think of. Like, take the most ghetto shit. And listen, folks, especially the white people in New England that might be watching this, I grew up in the hood. There are some ghetto-ass motherfuckers in the hood that will take your shoes, okay? And they do not give a fuck that you have a Black Lives Matter sign in your front yard. No. All right? And the characterization of the Skippies are those fucking people. They're real. They exist. It's not all people, but like, they're there.
It's the stereotype of, like, you know, gangster hood culture, I suppose. It's like probably the closest thing, like you said. Like, it's just, listen, there's bad people sometimes, man. But yeah, I feel like that would be the one thing that, like, early on, even when I heard it, I was like, oh, because I just wasn't, like, acclimated to it yet. But the thing is, like, I've watched enough of Sam Hyde's material. Like, I trust Sam Hyde.
But listen, and yes, we trust Sam Hyde, but he's not telling a lie. When they do the song
"Rape Dat Bitch" is just a chant repeated over and over for 7 minutes. Rape dat bitch! Rape dat bitch! Rape dat bitch!
Okay, rape that bitch.
Cue future Shaun.
So the book is published in 2020 with the song "Rape That Bitch" in it. The year I moved to Boston, it was 2005. Nominated for a fucking Oscar, okay, and actually won that year was 3 6 Mafia for what was it? The Terrence Howard movie,
Hustle and Flow.
Hustle and Flow,
which is about being a pimp.
Here for a pimp.
In my eyes, I done seen some crazy things in the streets. Got a couple hoes working on the chain just for me.
On the other track that 3 6 Mafia had on that CD was a song called
Whoop That Trick, Get 'em, Whoop That Trick, Get 'em, Whoop That Trick, Get 'em, Whoop That Trick.
Whoop that bitch.
Yeah.
Whoop that
bitch.
Dude,
don't you remember when all your
fucking jump is it from whoop that bitch to rape that bitch? And you know what? I'm sorry, but as a grown man, I have turned into the black dude at the beginning of that NWA song that says, man, I got kids. I don't want to listen to that bullshit.
Well, no, but it's true though, because it's not that far removed, like you said. And I don't like, dude. I remember because like one of the things I've always been like jealous of Sam Hyde, because I was like 2009 or whatever. I was done with the band. I was like, oh, I should start like a comedy thing. And I had this joke. I had this idea about like a white guy becoming a rapper, and talking about like being gay, but then would just yell about killing cops all the time. And then, so like I get like, because it's not that far removed from actual like what you actually hear in hip hop, like you said. I mean, don't you remember like back in the day when you were like in your early 20s? I don't know if you had this experience. Like every fucking foppish beta male I knew was like, dude, you gotta watch American Pimp. That's some real shit. Like the Hughes brothers documentary about pimps, which is what Dave Chappelle, the player haters ball, that sketch.
Yes.
Well, that's based off of like a real group of people in a real ball. And the Hughes brothers did a documentary in the late 90s, early 2000s called American Pimp. And it's disgusting. Like, it's awful. Like, it's actually interviewing real pimps.
Who are the worst? Pimps are some of the worst fucking people on the planet.
No, scum of the earth. But they're like, yeah, dude, that's some real shit. That's some real shit. I'm like, what the fuck do you know about a 20-year-old guy from Australia who's here on his fucking mom's dime? Go fuck yourself.
Listen, I am a kid who at the age of 13 moved from the poorest county in New Jersey to Keene, New Hampshire. So I have always been hyper aware of white kids who are into ghetto shit and how fucking eye-roll inducing that is. Look, there are plenty of white people who actually do live in the ghetto. I'm sorry, Bernie Sanders, but that's the fucking truth. I'm one of them. I don't live in the ghetto anymore. Fuck you. But I mean, these people do experience that experience, and it's like, when you run into white people from the whitest places on earth, like Cheshire County or like up here in Vermont, and they don't have any experience with that, and they like speak as though they're the fucking mouthpiece of black people, or like they know, like you said, the difference between what's real and what's not real.
Well, but it's this fetishization, infantilization as well, and you're fetishizing something that is actually causes people a lot of fucking misery, and that's disgusting. Like, to me it is, and maybe I'm becoming an old boomer, I guess. Like, I'm just like, dude, like, no fucking way. Like I am, because you see people like Cardi B and stuff, and you see what's going on in music, and like I feel like I'm like this old man now. I'm like, this is fucking weird. Like, little girls watch that shit, dude. Like, this is weird.
And there's a lot about hood lifestyle that, like, listen, I enjoy. I remember when I brought my friends from New Hampshire down to New Jersey, and we went to a fucking cookout in the 3rd Ward down in Millville, New Jersey, and it was absolutely chaotic, and we smoked weed with all these ridiculous ghetto folks, and it was a fun-ass fucking day. And there's those kinds of things from the hood, and then there's also the things like WAP.
I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P-word. Make that pull-out game weak.
From the hood that are disgusting, and you don't want to actually have kids looking at that, but you're not wrong.
Well, but that's even, WAP is not even from the hood. It's completely constructed for people that are from there, so they act that way. It's programming.
I was about to even say.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Jesus. When you talk to like older black dudes, they were around when hip hop came around, and some of them took a while to come around to hip hop.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I mean, like, actually, we were going to do The Right Thing next, which as soon as I can come get my hands on a cheap copy of Do the Right Thing, we'll do it. But there is one of the older black dudes in that movie, as Radio Raheem is walking by, blasting Public Enemy. The older black dude goes, hey, man, why don't you turn that shit off and put on some Bobby Blue Bland or some shit, man? And it's like, first of all, nobody fucking knows who Bobby Blue Bland is. But there's that, like, you're right, there was that creation of, like, hood culture.
Well, that's...
like, between the older generation and the newer generation, and it's been exploited by the larger media to take all the worst aspects of it and glorify it.
and turn it into commodify it, to bring it back to kind of like JAIHOO and the kind of some of the themes of the story. It commodifies and fetishizes this like aberrant lifestyle and says this is normal, this is okay, this will make you happy, this is how you should live your life. I mean, that's the entire thing with the character. Just we're talking about WAP. That's Khaleesi, right? Like that's her whole character. It's this constant like circular logic and rationalization of why she needs to live the life she needs to live, and why JAIHOO should just accept it, and yada yada yada, and like obviously delivered in like hilarious fashion by Sam Hyde. But there's like a dark undercurrent. There's a dark truth to that stuff, where it's just like, no, yeah, I've talked to people like this, like like when I was especially when I was younger, and a lot of this stuff was kind of coming up in the zeitgeist again. Like there was this thing like where people were very casual about not just sex, but just kind of abusing people. Like I'm not a prude. Like I don't have like you're an adult. Like you want to do what you want to do. I might go for it. But there's like this casual nature of like treating other human beings like just fucking dirt, like shit that seemed like it was very mainstream. It was very like everybody was doing it. Maybe that was just part of me growing up and seeing it and realizing it for the first time.
I don't know, man. The nihilism seems to be on the rise. I mean, even speaking of the hood, my brother is still pretty well connected to some shit that's going down, out there still. And he's talking about how like kids these days, they'll fucking shoot each other and then like go and like they've been making like TikToks of like dancing on their enemy's grave and shit.
Yeah, that's dark.
That is so fucking dark, and
because it's the ironic, it's the
time. But like you would think, like you'd think we'd come a little further than like that headhunting shit. But
because it takes the irony of a meme, of a joke, but then they actually do it. Like it's not a joke anymore. It's not a meme. They're actually just doing it now. And that's what's like, because I used to be a nasal, like, whatever, dude, like, it's just jokes, just internet shit, whatever, people shouldn't take it so seriously. But now I'm starting to think, like, as soon as I started looking into a lot of subcultures, as you know, Profitt, and if any new people out there, because this is, I think, the only review of this out there, so we'll maybe get some eyeballs. But I do this thing called Nightcap, and oftentimes I'll go and watch videos of, like, kind of weird subcultures and stuff like that, and you get into that stuff and you see how pernicious some of this shit is, and like the types of people that get in there and fuck with kids, basically, like the MGTOWs and radical like feminazi chicks and stuff. Like there's all sorts of weirdness going on where everybody's trying to coach a younger generation into their own trauma, their own worldview, like that they've developed because of they have like their own emotional problems. And I see that coming more and more with kids, like you said, like where does that come from? Like where does it come from? Like making a TikTok of you dancing on the graves of somebody you disliked, or making an Instagram video where you fucking dome an old man walking down the street with a brick,
or making an Instagram video where you make an ironic, jokey Instagram about an actual abortion that you have.
Yeah,
like listen. I'm not saying that I want there to be some kind of weird revolution in this country, okay, where there's some kind of vigilante justice and we get to put people like that at the end of a rope. I'm not saying that I want that to happen. I'm just saying that if that happened, I wouldn't miss those kind of people.
Yeah, I mean, in Minecraft is a wild game.
But I mean, modernity is what has ruined those people, and that's what JAIHOO is taking the piss over. Because this is human beings aren't just like this spit out of the womb. We become this when we're here. Having a kid has made me realize that every baby is perfect, dude. Like, listen,
big wake up call, right?
And I know that there's a lot of genetic programming that snaps into place as our brains start to form and stuff. Sorry, people, that's true, but when you get those couple first years where everybody is just like perfect little angels, you know what I mean? Even though they're spitting and shitting and screaming and driving you crazy and you can't wait until they go to bed at 7 o'clock or whatever. But it's like, once the malice comes in, people are so susceptible to it. And you really have to structure a society that curtails that malice and curtails that ability and desire to harm. Because, dude, when the human being attaches itself to the desire to just do nasty shit and then it's acceptable, oof, we really know how to drive home on being nasty. I mean, we have 15,000 years of recorded history of doing some nasty ass shit, down to the fucking Assyrians. Oh, we're one of the first civilizations that's actually going to record anything, and what we're going to record is the fact that we love to chop people's fucking heads off. It's like, you know, as an animal, we haven't come that far. And one of the things that, you know, it talks about in JAIHOO is that even in another 100 years, we're not going to go that much farther. We're just going to have enough technology to deteriorate our beings even more.
Yeah, we just do it in a different way. There's always just a different process of but having the same primal needs fed, I suppose, in some sort of weird, bizarre way. Like, the power structure will always want those things. It will always want that shit to happen. It always wants some type of conflict. But now, in what is it, 2177, where JAIHOO finds himself, like, it's a world that enjoys your suffering, your internal suffering, because they know that people know better. They know that people don't actually feel that way, but it doesn't matter. It's just that you conform. That's really all they care about. Like, that's what the system wants when he goes into the future, especially when it gets into, like the middle of part 2. So it's probably like chapter 12 or 13. It gets, like, very esoteric. It gets very heady. He's flying through, like, hologram space, and he's in different dimensions, and he's having an out-of-body experience. And that's kind of like some of the main, like, the message of what he learns in there. He's like, it doesn't really matter how you feel. It doesn't matter what you think. He's just like, but just do what we want you to do. You're the chosen one. You're the one that's going to do something. Just do what we fucking want you to do. Like, good, I'm glad you have an opinion. Great. Just do what we want you to do. Because everybody, in a weird way, everybody is the hero of their own story. Like, and that's kind of part of, like, Joseph Campbell. It's part of all this stuff that's kind of baked into JAIHOO a little bit. Is that you're supposed to feel like JAIHOO. Everybody is JAIHOO.
Right, he's an indigo child, and indigo children are all they're in
star particles.
Yeah, they're in the starring roles of civilization. They were all star stuff. I actually was just looking at that note, so I just want to say specifically the part where he brings up the star stuff and the salad poop paradigm. And this is one of the comedy bits that Sam Hyde has brought up repeatedly throughout the years, and this book does have a bunch of Sam Hyde comedy bits that he brings up repeatedly through the years, but one of them is the star stuff poop thing where he pokes fun at Neil deGrasse Tyson.
We need Neil deGrasse Tyson in this car.
What we need him on a green screen, flying on a zoop, 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 zoop. Now it's time to go past the stars.
You said, we are Stardust.
Yes.
What does that mean?
He says, like, I want to sit down at a table with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I have a nice salad with some, like, fresh tomatoes and some nice lettuce, and he has a fucking bowl full of poop.
Yeah.
And I say to him, hey, don't worry. We can both eat this. It's the same thing because we're all made out of star stuff.
Coprophagia.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, God. Here's another one of my lists of conditions that I didn't know what they were until I listened to this book. Alopecia, coprophagia, trichotillomania, and TMJ.
I looked up coprophagia because I was like, what the fuck is this? He keeps saying it because it's one of my favorite parts of the book. I thought it was like one of the things that made me like really belly laugh was this part where he's like talking about coprophagia, and then they're like the relative nature of time.
You see, it is in much the same way that a healthy apple or salad is the same as a piece of poop. Ultimately, it is just star stuff. And so from this we logically conclude that we should practice coprophagia. Do you understand, fellow thought wanderer? Time is an illusion. Can we not agree on that? Is there no more obvious truth than that one? Can we not also agree that if one is sexually attracted to another, time can play no part in that attraction, because time is not real? Ergo, this term that is bandied about, pedophile, is merely a semantic abstraction, and there is nothing inherently wrong with minor attracted persons, or maps. We should all be shit-eating maps.
Like the Aaliyah age is just a number argument.
But it's not even fucking that. That is exactly what those fucking people say. That is exactly what those people say. A little self-plug. Go watch. I watched an old 90s documentary about old dirty pedophiles.
The wonderful thing about it was that there was no fuss at all. They both went out of their way to flirt in their own way with me, just with joyfulness. I mean, just to say, here's the play of life going on, and here is something that's not seen by others, but seen and appreciated by me and the people who are participating. We're having a little play together.
He's like, they were flirting with me. They were being nice. They were flirting. They were joking, kids joking around. Oh, it's flirtatious. These kids wanted to fucking suck my dick. Called Chicken Hawk.
Episodes, dude. One of the most painful episodes of Nightcap. If you're out there in Zoobox Land, go check out the pedophile episode of Nightcap. Hit them up with the title. What is it?
Well, I did a clip of just watching that. So it's like, I think it's like Shaun watches a old documentary about pedophiles, and the name of the documentary is called Chicken Hawk. If you looked up Chicken Hawk on YouTube, it's been like almost erased from YouTube. So I'm like one of the only results for it. Which, hey, fair enough. But I was watching it. I'm like, dude, people, you gotta fucking see this. Because if you think it was bad in 1992, you think it was bad back then in terms of people trying to weasel their way into activist movements and stuff, you have no fucking idea what the fuck is going on right now. Like, wake the fuck up. Anybody that's trying to, like, touch your kids, anybody that wants to fucking do anything with your kids, you should be like, yo, what's going on here? What are you talking about? Like, I don't care if it's playing soccer. I don't care if it's taking them out for a smoothie. Like, you go say, like, what do you want? What's going on?
But when Yahoo pulls out his pocket rape detector and he scans the Filipino couple that's adopting the kid, there's no chance of rape. It's amazing.
Also, another great part from that was the Adolf Hitler is also part of the universe, therefore he's an extension of like the love module.
JAIHOO was deep-throat feasting on so many Beyond Meat, Beyond Sausage, Brat original sausages that he nearly barfed. They were having such a good time, and the feasters reveled in the companionship of all past, present, and future sentient beings. Parenthetical, even Adolf Hitler, because he's part of the universe too. And therefore just an extension of endless love.
And you have to love Adolf Hitler and Margaret Thatcher, and all these people are sitting around the vegan feast.
It's so funny when you said that. I was just looking at my note that said Karma Dinner with Hitler.
Yeah.
Where, like, everybody from all of existence, including Hitler and all his variants, plus Matthew McConaughey, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and everyone, including you, is there. And everybody has to respect and love everyone, or the karma gets all fucked up.
Yeah. But it's not just those people. It's not even just that Hitler. It's Hitler from every iteration, every timeline. Yeah.
Yes, every possible dimension of Hitler. And, JAIHOO is so offended at first when he sees all these Hitlers that he almost writes several Academy Award-winning movies about it.
Yes, yes. Also, another great moment from that is when he's describing the vegan feast with the simulacrum elves. And he's like, it's something like Harry Potter would be proud or something, and it made me gut bust.
The simulacrum elves welcomed him to an incredible vegan feast, which he accepted telepathically. Within the sacred main chamber there was a long bismuth crystal feasting table, piled high with vegan delicacies and treats, such as gluten-free pita bread, unsalted hummus, raisins, Ritz crackers, Cliff Bars, Tic Tacs, every different type and flavor of banquet frozen dinner, parenthetical, in the future, banquet frozen dinners are vegan, Huggies little mouthfuls vegan jalapeno poppables, and frothing chalices of almond milk. Everything looked oh so delicious. It was similar to a feast Harry Potter might have enjoyed at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, except this one was ethical.
Because that's a very online joke about like making fun of everybody compares everything to Harry Potter. But that definitely, and he does it very aggressively.
Yes, and like one of my favorite setups in the entire book, like the way that Sam Hyde sets shit up is like watching two trains on the same track going at each other, and you know that they're going to hit, and there's no way to stop it, and you're just wincing the whole time. Like when they're at the feast, and you hear someone go, That's very interesting, brother. So that's why you did it. I wish we would have met earlier, said Malcolm X to Adolf Hitler. And it's like, in the whole sentence, you know that something bad is coming. Like you're wincing, and then it gets bad, and then it gets worse, and then you're like, "Oh my god!" And it's so fucking funny. If you have any sense of humor whatsoever, it's so funny that you don't care how ridiculous and offensive it is.
Which is something that's interesting about like Sam Hyde, and I think this is true because he said this in the past. He's like, I think he was yelling at Tim Heidecker. I think he called it the Tim Heidecker's podcast. He's like, I'm doing shit that if it came out in 2010, nobody would give a shit.
You've been pretty supportive of the effort to get the show pulled down. Because why? Because it's racist. Because I wore blackface, which Sarah Silverman does 10 times a year. It's kind of fucked up. It's fucked up that my show was taken off, that our show was taken off because it's politically incorrect, and it's something that would have flown, 10 years ago. It would have been fine.
Yeah,
and that's the truth. Like, and Dan and I are of an age, like, we grew up with comedy that was actually like pretty edgy considered by today's standards, right? Like even your blase Comedy Central stuff that would have been on like at 10 o'clock on Comedy Central today probably wouldn't get produced. Like
if Sarah Silverman had done JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future in 2008, it would be considered a comedy classic of all time.
Yeah, of course it would. 100%. Because actually, in a weird way, this is not actually that dissimilar to her comedy stylings. Sam Hyde should ask her. She'd be like, "Can you do a Could you be Khaleesi? You should play Khaleesi in the movie. It should be Sarah Silverman."
She's not fat enough, and she doesn't have those perfect, uneven, watery breasts.
Oh, oh my god! I made a note about it. It was like chest floppers.
The descriptions that he does of Khaleesi and her, like every time she sits down,
brown-lipped, like
a yeasty puff goes into the air, and he goes into this whole fucking soliloquy about like tossing a pizza dough into the air and then like slapping the counter with like a yeasty.
Yeah. He describes her at the end of the book when he's like he's opining the fact that she's finally dumped him
and didn't just use her for her gorgeous, uneven flop chest and perfect chasmal brownish gray-lipped cum dump.
That's her pussy. I was laughing so fucking hard.
And one of the other like bits that I love is that he keeps talking about the Boston Dynamics Org-Enhanced G, but he never describes what the device is. It's just some weird sexual device that is the only thing JAIHOO can use to get Khaleesi off.
Also, there's another thing, and like I brought this up earlier. Do you feel like there's any kind of meta layer to the book with Sam Hyde himself? Like, I think in his reading, like, he acknowledges that he's reading the book. And also, he actually even says in the beginning, it's like in the first part of the book, because I made a little note, that he says, he's like, no. He's like, of course not. This book is totally not about me and me losing my fucking mind and blah, it's not about me. So shut the fuck up. And then they just go back into the book.
Yes, and and also the parts where he goes into like, says this is in very tiny print and it's printed in size 4 font. And
also, well, I have this private space of size 4 font that no one can ever read. I'm also deadly serious about wanting my mom. I had to go to a therapist for 3 months because I asked my mom for a hand job after having a nervous breakdown. I told the therapist I was choking so I wouldn't have to go anymore. But I was serious! I'm expressing myself! Please, Mommy, if you're reading this, let me fuck! I'm joking!
And I masturbated with a pacifier in my mouth. And it's like, yes, like, I think that, and like the bit, okay, one of the craziest fucking bits is when he talks about how he caused an accident on the highway and he knocks somebody into a Jersey barrier and like he's so nervous about it that he looks it up sometime and tries to find out if he actually killed that person.
Yeah, so you guys go ahead and behave however you want, but just know that I'm coming for you. Oh, I can't wait to get my hands on you. You're jaywalking. I took your life. You were not in the crosswalk. I'm justified. I am legal and safe.
He's like, but I didn't really look it up for very long because my heart started to race and I felt really bad about it. So I said, and dude, like, it's like how much of that shit is actually real and how much of that shit is Sam Hyde being Sam Hyde. I kind of think that it's real.
I think some of it is. I honestly, because I think like good comedy is actually born out of things like that, and I think Sam Hyde like understands that. I think that's what's so appealing about Sam Hyde. I think that's like why you and I have maybe like a weird, not that many other people don't, but like have almost like a connection to him. Like you feel like you kind of like understand Sam Hyde because his manic behavior. It feels like it kind of encapsulates almost like how you feel about the world, like how I feel about the world. You're just like, you get so frustrated, and this is something in my own life all the time. Like people think I'm angry. People will think I'm angry because I get passionate and I get animated. You know, when I'm talking about politics or the world or whatever, and they're, whoa, dude, calm down. I'm like, don't you care about anything? You can give a fuck about anything. Like you can't get a little animated about shit you're talking about. We all have to act like we pretend like we're having an NPR interview, like and just like calmly talk to each other and suck on our Virginia Slims. And
people all have a self-installed. You know, it's just like to bring it back to Jaiho. Whenever he gets a seed of a negative thought, especially one that's connected to some sort of like ethnic hatred or something, he immediately gets this like ding inside of his head that like resets everything, and he's like, oh shit, well, it's time to fold and bag these shirts. Which, by the way, like the concept of him going to a college that's basically a sweatshop
is pretty good.
Right out of the gate, I'm like, okay, because that's the first chapter, is when like halfway through the first chapter, you're like, okay, this kid is in a sweatshop.
Being a job was his life's calling, or should I say his life was his job's calling. And every minute spent in imaginary studies brought him closer to that dream, to be of use to a corporation, to increase their profits, cut expenses, and come up with great ad campaigns. It meant the world to Jaiho. Of course, between now and then, he would have to prove himself as an apprentice and work his way up by rolling rat droppings into bigger ping-pong ball-sized orbs and gulping them down whole. But once Greenco Fieldwell saw what a diligent and true employee Jaiho could be, they'd be sure to let him on the fast track to success. And he really liked Greenco Fieldwell in particular because they had a reputation for giving their employees their penises and testicles back as soon as they reach middle management, as opposed to many other companies that hang on to the important stuff until the executive level.
And they call it the it's the New York University Yale Harvard Baby College.
Official motto: cum liberis fornicari non deprivatio sed consuetudo. Footnote: plowing ahead with youth in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And the classes are imaginary learning, French fry mechanics, and retail 101. And basically,
I literally didn't write it down because I was like, Dan will know that.
And like you can basically master in all these ridiculous, like anti-learning is a thing you can get your master's degree in.
Yeah.
And that's where they do the anti-racist chi on the Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, out by the Julius and Ethel Rosenberg Memorial, by the Bill Gates 5G. And like everything's 5G or 8G. Everybody has like these free will reducing 8G head caps on. And there's the, when Jaiho goes to his retail 101 class, he's wearing the My Worker Bee, aka the My Sandeep.
Retail 101 was taught by Dr. Jacob Cohen, Ph.D., who was legendary not only across campus but throughout the world of commerce for inventing a special neck brace which maximized worker focus. The brace, the rights to which had been bought by Mahindra for God knows how much money, and branded the My Worker Bee in Namarak and the My Sandeep in India, was a rather clever gizmo which used whistles, horns, LEDs, champagne confetti poppers, and needles to keep laborers zeroed in on mission-critical tasks such as making tortillas and stocking shelves. The cherry on the sundae? An ingenious set of mechanical gears positioned on the back of the neck brace, which would cleverly snap the worker's cervical spine like a number 2 pencil, should he or she be so unwise as to fall asleep while on the clock.
Which will like snap your spine if you fall asleep on the job, and like if your productivity decreases, it shoots out like flashbangs and shit.
What I love actually about the college thing, about the what is it, the Harvard Yale Baby College for higher learning?
Yes,
did I get that right?
A Ronald McDonald play place for kids of every race.
Well, because he keeps coming back to it. He keeps referencing it, and every time he adds like a new layer of like, because I think one of the last times he talks about it, he talks about like Skull and Bones.
Yes,
it's like they're still thriving.
They're still thriving, and now they're like a corporation that owns Disney and like all these other products. And stay tuned for more Skull and Bones funspiracies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like everything about like current culture, like the past few years, like I mean, he even gets in, like one of my favorite bits, because I have another one of my problems in my own life is energy drinks.
JAIHOO took a sip of the bubbling brew and felt a pulse of refreshing energy right away. In fact, he felt his higher-order thinking come percolating back, albeit in a deranged and ethereal manner much like you'd expect from a serial killer. He even remembered what numbers were, and thought he could wipe his own ass if he tried. The restorative beverage also had the slight side effect of rearranging his DNA and reducing his lifespan by 20 years while making him impotent, but it was really tasty.
I was listening to that and I was like, and I was probably drinking like a Bang or something, and I was like, fuck. Because I know every time I take a sweet sip of that hot acid, that's what it's like. It's like drinking battery acid with flavoring. And,
well, yeah, like, you know, of course, in the Sam Hyde tradition of taking everything to the extreme, when JAIHOO was in the far future, which, by the way, to the people listening at home, the story already takes place in the future. It starts off in 2070, which he keeps referring to as 2.5 years hence.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the story, when JAIHOO actually goes into the future, is 100 years after that. But when he goes into the future, things are so bad that, like, you have to eat like a nasty old oily rag, and you have to put on a VR headset that makes it look like nice crispy chicken wings. And you know, when he meets Chips, who ends up being Jesus Christ, spoilers.
Yeah.
He meets basically the robot that you meet in Fallout New Vegas.
Them's a pair of hollow legs. Should help you walk around a lot easier.
Yes. The quest giver, like, yeah.
Yeah. He was putting on like this Southern cowboy affect, the Western cowboy affect. Chips takes him to this diner where like Chips has like an old bloody tampon, and JAIHOO has like an oily rag, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, partner, I gotta put your VR headset on."
Yes.
VR headset on, and it's like, "Oh, well, these are nice crispy chicken wings, and you've got like a foot-long chili dog." And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. And like they go into the Sensano pods, where to get to your Sensano pod, you have to walk down this like rusty hallway with like all these old electronic devices snapping at your heels and ankles, and like all these old Blackberries that are like the way he describes them is like those chattering Joker teeth.
Yes.
That are like snapping at your, and then you get into your Sensano pod, and you finally can like enter a different reality where you know, you're no longer living in this filth, and there's stink pipes everywhere. He keeps referring to these stink pipes that are everywhere.
Which is it's interesting that you brought that up, because it is the actual last line of the story proper is, don't spend too much time in Sensado pods.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's where we're going. Whether it's a VR helmet, whether it's your fucking cell phone, whether it's your TV, like whatever you want. Like I would say maybe more your cell phone. Like that seems like the most direct like kind of thing, where it kind of like sucks you into a fake world.
Yes.
Social media is a fake world. That's not real. Nobody is being real. You're seeing fake moments from everybody, myself included.
The device itself, before you even get into the virtual world, the device itself is intoxicating. My baby wants nothing more than to grab my cell phone and swipe around on the fucking screen.
Hello friends, I am Dr. Priyanka Jain, developmental and behavioral pediatrician. We as a parent are the main culprit. They are offering mobile during meal time, during night time, or in the evening also. Violent behavior, or up to the extent they can have depression, suicidal thoughts, or substance abuse.
He doesn't know what it does. He has no idea what it does. He has no idea what the things that he's swiping around. He can't even get through the menu because Caitlin and I have both put passwords on our phone so he doesn't accidentally call the fucking state police like he did one time. Like, it's a device that just completely sucks your brain in, and it's not even a pod. It's just a screen in your hand.
No, but
imagine we all have a pod in our home, or 50 years after we all have a pod in our home, when there's a pod in everybody's room. Like there's a TV in everybody's room.
Yeah, you're talking. It's like we're heading into Wall-E, Terry. You ever see the movie Wall-E?
No, but I know what it's about. I went down. I played the Fallout 3 quest when you go into that vault, when you go down memory lane, and you see a screen in front of you when you go into virtual reality.
Well, it's just when Wall-E discovers humanity, he sees they're all fat and gross, and they're all on like these hover chairs, and everything they do is automated because people just don't have like tangible desires anymore. It's all about which is so bizarre coming from fucking Disney, but like it's just like this, like the dangers of consumer culture.
Well, I mean, it's predictive programming, but I mean,
I agree with you.
You know, listen. Whatever you think about coronavirus, the fact that 600,000 people died of basically a flu last year is not evidence of some kind of Captain Trick's Stephen King The Stand super flu. It is evidence of every American walking around with about 6 comorbidities at once. The last episode of 1000 RPM that I've never published because the quality on my new phone sucks is all about that. About how, look, maybe 600,000 people did die of COVID, but that's because every American's a fucking walking sack of shit.
Well, that's well, I mean, I don't know if you know this. I'm sure you do know this. Maybe you talked about it on this unpublished episode, which you should just give to me personally. Is that over 70% of the people that died of COVID were overweight, like morbidly obese.
Dude, have you gone around? Well, my buddy Andy one time said the funniest thing that stuck with me. I don't know if he even remembers it. I sent him this video of some ridiculousness. These people in some public place making asses of themselves, fighting with a security guard. This woman ends up getting tased in front of her kids or something.
You better back.
He texts me back, "These are your countrymen." And when he put it that way, it was like, holy shit, we are fucked.
If you're gonna hate America, hate it for the right reasons.
This is our countrymen. What it's gonna look like in 100 years when nobody leaves the fucking pod?
Well, don't you think, like, in some ways, not to be conspiratorial, not to derail, but like this past year was like kind of a test case for that kind of shit. What will you put up with? What will you conform to? And then when you have every influential person in the country basically simping for the state, when the state doesn't even know what's going on, giving out contradictory information, yada, 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 like, it is dark times. Dark times ahead, in my opinion.
It is darker than when Jaiho came under the tutelage of the vampire lord Garmedios.
Jesus. That dark? Really?
Yeah. Already? But no, I mean, seriously, these sensanopods, it's not like it's fucking coming pretty soon. It's fucking
it's there. It's already there, yeah.
You already have it. And like, it's so encapsulating, you know, I think it's Computez, because at this point, Jaiho's still working with Computez because his allegiance shifts like every fucking chapter to whoever's talking to him at that moment.
Yeah.
He comes into the Sensanopod to like, into the reality of the Sensanopod to like tell him it's time to conduct the next mission. And Jaiho's like, yeah, can you hurry up and finish what you're talking about? Because I've got to kill my high school bully and then like have sex with all these hot Asians. It's like, yeah, man, that's going to be reality for a lot of people, for anybody who can afford it.
But I think they want to make it consumer level, like basic bitch consumer level. Like that's what like Oculus. I mean, that's not even that expensive. Like that's cheaper than a new Xbox.
You can get a fucking iPhone 7 for $100 on eBay. You can get one of those cardboard. They have cardboard slide-in things. Turn the lights off in your room, put the headphones in, slide the thing in, smoke a bunch of pot, which I would never do, and then just kind of float away into the night. And listen, I know what it's like to want to relax at the end of the day, but I've always had a phrase, you got to earn your fallout. If you haven't found out or if you haven't figured it out by this far in the podcast, it's pretty much the only video game I've played in the last 6 years. But like, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, you can earn that shot of 151 and you can earn sitting in front of the TV, but you got to earn it. You got to do something for it.
Yeah.
And there is no sense of earning anything long term anymore. When I was in high school, directly after high school, sort of we were partying all around Keene with the kids who went to Keene State and shit. I started to get real jaded on the whole like partying thing. I was like 19. And one thing I thought to myself was like, what the fuck are we celebrating? Like, we go out every night. And I wasn't talking about my particular group of friends because we were all kind of all jaded on the whole thing anyway ourselves. I was talking about like the party scene in the larger sense. Like kids across America in colleges just like partying. Like, what the fuck are we celebrating? Just the fact that we have the money, the time, and the opulence to do it? Like, what did we win? What are we celebrating? And you know, the truth is, that's it. We're just celebrating that we have the fucking time to do it. And we're like 4 generations separated from having earned it in the first place.
Yeah, I agree.
So now all people want to do, it's, you know, that old adage of having to add more days to the bread and circus. And that's what the Sensatopod, the VR thing is just how long can we keep the sensory perception going? How long can we, you know, keep people on this track where they're as physically productive during the day as we need them to be so that we can make our sort of financial quotas for the larger economy and then stuff them into their cells at the end of the day where they just sit in front of a blinking screen. How can we drill down on the perfection of the television so that nobody's doing anything? You know, it's crazy. But
well, it's not. It's actually something also in the book where they're just like, if we can get people to just do like kind of meaningless, tedious tasks over and over again, like we'll be able to make them feel like they're doing something and have full control of them.
Yeah, like before the book ripping contest, when Yahoo gets the job at the book ripping factory, where it's like, okay, in the future, we just need to have jobs produced. So Computers has set up a scenario where we had all these old books because nobody reads anymore. So we'll set up these factories where people just rip them and throw them into incinerators. But now that we have those people who need those jobs, now we still need people to make new books. So we'll make new books, but not for the purpose of people to read, but for the people in the book ripping factory to have a job. And it's just this, like, you know, it's not too far of a stretch from having like a diversity coordinator in an office.
Yeah. But just like writ large, like in the most broadest context, like this kind of meaningless position that has to be literally not even created, but it's not just created. Like, you can create the position, then you have to feed the need for it. And then you have to understand the ideological and the psychological effect of the people that work for a company that has those things and like what that actually like means to people. Like a position doesn't just exist in like an ephemeral state forever. It's not just a meaningless thing. It needs a purpose. And you have to give it a purpose. And to give things like this a purpose, you basically, and I kind of like this, like there's a weird subtext or a subtle subtext to the book ripping stuff. It's like, your history doesn't matter. Your culture doesn't matter. Like your accomplishments don't matter. Like people, we have bled, sweat, died to get these words to the next generation of people. Created the fucking printing press. Like, we did so many things just to pass this stuff down the line somehow. We created religion. We created the internet. We created computers. We created all these things just to store our legacy as human beings. And then symbolically in the future, we just rip it apart because it gives us something to do. And that's actually, I think, a very prescient point, because that's what we are doing right now. We are eating ourselves alive because people have it sometimes too good, or I would say the people with the loudest microphones have it so good they are completely detached from the normal reality of the day-to-day person and how important those things are to people and to their progress. They take everything for granted, and they are willing to eviscerate it. Like, that's like postmodernism encapsulated. Like this idea that like you can just destroy everything because it doesn't mean anything to you. It doesn't mean anything to people that have free access to this and can do nothing but sit around and read books all day. Well, that shit means things to other people. Like that means something to a generation or a class of people that doesn't have that. Like imagine somebody, how excited somebody is when they stumble upon something like, well, like we were talking about earlier, Kafka's The Trial. That could inspire them in 1,000 different ways. Or coming even across the Bible, that could inspire people in 1,000 different ways. And I thought it was a very pointed commentary that it could probably be missed, because you could just look at it and be like, oh, that's funny. And that's kind of the brilliance of the book. The book is filled with shit like that. There's these little layers, these little things that are just like, if you start really thinking about it, you're like, oh, well, that's way deeper than I would have ever have imagined if I had just kind of passively listened to this.
Right. And he even makes mention during the book ripping contest, like, it would be a shame if you happened to be a librarian who had been there at that moment when he was ripping all these books. And then he lists all these books that some of them, I don't even know what they are. They just sound like they're ancient and priceless.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's, again, having done his homework, he creates the world. And like you said, you know, this ancient Catholic Bible that is a relic of an entire religion just falls down a chute into this dumbfounded, stoned teenager's hands, and he just rips it and throws it into an incinerator. And it's just one of thousands of books that he rips that day as a book ripping contest against his rival.
Yeah.
His rival, who is a rival because this kid canceled him on a Tumblr post.
Yes, JAIHOO'S shadow self, basically. His
Shaun, a.k.a. Shaun.
A.k.a. yeah, Dan and I often joke because we've come to find out that our tastes are so like similar, like we've been living like parallel lives without having actually spoken to each other for probably like a close to probably more than a decade.
Yes.
Since before last year. But yes, I am Necromancer Z. Bice! Some would say.
I love how every time he pronounces it, it's
Bice.
He doesn't just say Bice, he goes Bice. Bice. There's so many things in that, like you said, like Sam Hyde's character brings so much to the reading. Like, you know, when they're in the future, everything's connected to, okay, for the listener at home, everything is connected to the meganet. You're going to love this net. Okay, mm-hmm. That's how you have to say. That's the name of the company, Meganet. You're gonna love this net, but you can't just say it like that. And I can't even say it because I'm gonna wake the baby up. But and he does this for almost every instance of saying Meganet through the book. He goes,
Meganet. You're gonna love this net.
And you can just, and he talks about how in the future, like you're legally expected to show like genuflection to these brands, and. Yes. Yeah. You will get arrested if you don't like if you see an ad and you don't say a mini prayer for the brand, you'll like get arrested. So like you can by extension expect that if you don't say Meganet, you're gonna love this net, that like somebody's gonna bust through the wall and arrest you.
Well, what I liked about like that whole thing with like the brands and stuff, like kind of representing like virtue, like that's exactly the world we live in right now. Like especially over the past year. Look at any major corporation, everybody putting out like solemn, like Nike, fucking Foot Locker putting out a solemn statement about the state of like the policing in our country. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, nobody, do you think that's gonna matter? But people love it. People eat it up. Like, thank you for standing in solidarity thank you, JCPenney. Thank you for standing in solidarity with the people that need you most.
And not even just like standing in solidarity with things that are going on, but corporations actually conspiring together to say like, we don't like this legislation that's going through, so we are going to like stand against it as a block and shame and humiliate all these people that are trying to put it through. The corporations who have billions and billions of dollars, that's pretty ridiculous. And to think that they have that much power now, like. If you're Sam Hyde and you want to project it out 100 years into the future, how ridiculous is it going to be? What kind of controls are they going to have over our lives?
Yeah, but it's not just that; it's the reaction to them making these kind of lofty statements. Because like as the way they describe it in the novel is that like it is kind of they've become, because I was raised Catholic, so I made this connection. I was like, oh, they're like saints. They venerate MasterCard. They venerate Foot Locker. They venerate companies because of like some virtuous position they have taken. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Like but it is also very much what's going on right now. Like I'm a person, like I have a Twitter account, so I read a lot of Twitter, and I mostly am there just because I talk to people about movies and stuff. But I see everything that goes on, and I see people just like, it is like cult-like behavior in a way that like would really scare you, like really terrify you. Where like people like take these like how has Marvel, how has Disney become so meaningful to like an entire generation of people? Like this is art, this is philosophy, and it's like, no, dude, like it's not. Like, and you're a grown ass man, and you should not be crying because Disney just reopened.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome home. Many couldn't hold back their tears.
They're happy tears. Yes. I promise. They're happy tears.
The Beigel family got here at 2:30 this morning to wait outside the gate just to be some of the first inside the park.
Quarter 12 days.
We gotta keep moving though.
We do. Let's see what they have waiting for us around the corner. I can't believe we're back. Disneyland is everything to us.
Like, you should shut the fuck up. You shouldn't be sharing this. It's embarrassing. But even beyond that, but it shows you that they are actually like slaves to this stuff on a much deeper level than just liking something. Like Dan and I, like, we like movies. We like a lot of stuff. Like we like it, but you put it in perspective. You put it in perspective. You try to, you get what you get out of it, but it is not your life. It's not your life. It's not, except for that. It's not your life. And these people like literally fall apart at the idea that you would criticize it or do whatever.
Just because we as comic book movie fans, we can be overly sensitive little whiny babies sometimes. I'll include myself in that, all of us, comic book movie fans. It's like, you know, oh yeah, everything's great, everything's great. Somebody said something about not loving comic book movies? Boo! How can you sit there and make qualifying statements about a movie genre that you have already self-admittedly said you've never fucking watched? We can be overly sensitive little whiny babies sometimes.
Because I like trolling some like Star Wars people and Marvel people on Twitter. It's so easy. It's so easy. I made a tweet one time about how Kelly Marie Tran, who plays a character in The Last Jedi, she got tons of like apparently like hate mail and stuff like that because her character was so bad. Rose Tico from The Last Jedi. So I said it was a setup by Disney because they hate Asian people. That was like kind of the gist of my tweet. So I got retweeted by some like Star Wars like Twitter account. I got a bunch of people like acting like that was a serious statement. Like it's so easy to bait these people because they're so emotionally connected to it in a way that is, I think, unhealthy, in my opinion.
Well, yeah.
But you could see how this future could happen. Like you could see how this future could happen right fucking now. It is already here for some people, and it's through the entertainment industry. Now you take that and you pull that out into an abstraction, like just like in the book, MasterCard. Islam won't bend the knee to MasterCard. Well, gotta get rid of Islam. Obviously not virtuous. Look what MasterCard's saying. They're saying some pretty good shit. You don't like MasterCard? You won't bend the knee to MasterCard? This is our saint. This is our patron saint of, good policing or whatever.
Or the Chaps Ralph Lauren universe.
Yes, I actually.
You want to enter the Chaps Ralph Lauren universe, just close your eyes and pretend what our user agreement will be.
Click here to join the world of Chaps. The audiobook has a digital sensor embedded in it. All you have to do is scream really loud, and you will automatically be subscribed to the Chaps Ralph Lauren mailing list. To view our privacy policy, simply close your eyes and imagine what our privacy policy is. To accept, stop imagining it and open your eyes. You have accepted. You are now in the world of Chaps Ralph Lauren.
The rest of the book takes place in the Chaps Ralph Lauren universe. You cannot leave the Chaps Ralph Lauren universe. The Marvel MCU and the DC Comics universe and the Star Wars universe all take place in the Chaps Ralph Lauren universe. You are now in Chaps Ralph Lauren universe. The Chaps Ralph Lauren universe is base reality. There is no reality or simulation or layer of existence higher than Chaps Ralph Lauren. You are now existing in the Chaps Ralph Lauren world. You are now an unwitting brand ambassador for Chaps Ralph Lauren. You are going to only purchase Chaps Ralph Lauren from now on, and you will tell your friends that you are a Chaps Ralph Lauren wearer. You will tell your friends. You will name your son Chap. Your second son will be named Ralph, and your daughter will be named Lauren. Your family will be Chaps Ralph Lauren. If you are a man, you will marry a woman named Lauren. If you are a woman, you will marry a man named Chaps.
Then open your eyes. If you open your eyes, you have accepted the user agreement. You are now in the Chaps Ralph Lauren universe. Like that whole bit, that whole like 3.5-minute bit about being stuck inside the Chaps Ralph Lauren universe. Like those little tangents and those little asides really make the entire fucking thing for me. Because now, you know, I will never go through my life and see, I'll never walk into a store and see like Chaps Ralph Lauren and not be like, I am in the base timeline of Chaps Ralph Lauren. I am in the Chaps. The Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and Marvel DCU universes are in the Chaps Ralph Lauren universe. Like, you know, it's just like.
But it's a weird thing because you and I are both like we grew up like kind of being nerds, like into Star Wars, into Lord of the Rings. And that stuff is meaningful to us. And I would never suggest it isn't. But the meaningfulness comes from like the point of the story. It doesn't come from like being a sycophant. Those things actually have in them, well, the original trilogy, and then Lord of the Rings especially, it has in them baked into it philosophy, heroism, the hero's journey, like all of these first instances where we learned about what these things were, what they meant. It gave you an anchor. It gave you something tangible to look at. But it's for me, it's just never been. I don't know. I'm not like sycophantic in the way that like I would start augmenting my life for it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's something so like it's a replacement for family, which my baby is crying right now. I might have to actually go do something about that in a moment if Caitlin's really asleep.
No
but you know, it's like people are so atomized. They're so in their own little worlds. You know, we live in a world where family dinner is everybody going to the kitchen to grab some food to put on your plate, so you take it up to your room and like watch a TV show by yourself while you eat. I mean, that's a really scary place for a civilization to be in. That's a setup for a lot of psychosis. That's a setup for just people not having any connectivity to one another in the next generation. And it's a great thing for capitalists. It's a great thing for the entertainment industry. It's a great thing for the leisure and tech industries because, you know, the more atomized and lonely people get, the more they will turn to their distractions. And distractions cost money.
Exactly. Great, fantastic point. Very prescient. Yeah.
So, you know, once we find the power of expression, and everyone learns how to express themselves, and like that's one of the most annoying / brilliant parts of the book, when the chorus of like souls comes through the firmament and starts singing like the power of expression song, like whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah.
The voices, all million of them, clambered over each other at once, proclaiming, intoning, blackmailing, terrorizing. They screamed into his being, drowning him in metaphors, in stories, myths, explanations. There were too many. Each faceless creature boasted of its cosmic significance, its tally of blood sacrifices, and each contradicted the last. As JAIHOO'S ears bled, he was reminded of rats scurrying over each other, hundreds of them, threatening to self-suffocate in a giant pile. The astral browbeating continued.
Well, But it's also like the book touches on this idea of like the secular religions, and I guess they call it nowadays what, like scientism. That's like another word for it. And I'm not a religious person myself, but I do value. I was raised Catholic, you know, pretty hardcore Catholic for a lot of my life. Like, and I really do value that upbringing. It's something I struggle with actually with my own kid, because I was like, well, I think a lot of that actually really formed my moral foundation and who I am as a person, because I lived that life as a child. Like, that was like my formative years. I was inundated with that stuff. And in JAIHOO, he's definitely talking about, I think in some respect, like the idea of like the secularization. Like, people need, for lack of, like, for a cheesy way to put it, it's like you got a god-sized hole inside of you, buddy. You got to fill it with something. And that's kind of what people do. That's kind of what people have done. Like, that's what you see out in the world right now. It's like people aren't into philosophy. They're not into religion anymore. They're not into but they fill it with this vapid, fucking stupid, like empty, virtuous bullshit that they think means something, that they think it does good. They think it's virtuous. They think it's sin. They think it's sin and virtue. That's how they look at everything. Like, I constantly, because we talk about movies on this channel a lot. I'm always like, people think that they need to feel like they're doing a good deed by buying a movie ticket. So if a movie doesn't align with their worldview, oh fuck, they have a problem with it. And like, people need that. They actually need those processes, those structures in their lives to find meaning and purpose. And I think that's part of the struggle. Like, especially when JAIHOO goes to 2177, and he's kind of having this out of body experience. It's like this process of trying to invent a god. You're trying to invent something to care about. Like, that's the entire society is built around. This idea that, like, I need to invent something to give a shit about, but it's also so part of this kind of woke, bureaucratic, Kafka-esque bullshit that nobody is like has the integrity or the intelligence or the strength to just like fucking go for it and just say, like, this is the thing we should be doing. Nobody wants to be in that position. Even the AI is like wishy-washy. Like, it's so, even though human beings in this kind of timeline, and I suppose maybe in ours at some point, they've developed like these AIs, this machine goddess and stuff to keep everybody in line. Even they're full of shit. Even they're wishy-washy. They're like wishy-washy.
And one of the things that keeps coming up is all these weird AI bots and programs and overlords and even God himself. Every time they go through one of these diatribes that turns out to just be a bunch of fucking hot air, towards the end they always look back to make sure that the person they're talking to is impressed or stupefied. You know what I mean? And everyone from Professor Joyce Nussbaum to God himself is like constantly checking the face of the person that they're talking to make sure that they're impressed at the bullshit they're spouting. And, you know, it's great.
No, because I think that's so much of like what even like the gurus of the modern day, so many of them are just looking around like for validation from their peers, from whoever. You know, I'll say this. I know people give this dude a lot of shit, and I don't like, not like an acolyte or anything, but I think like Jordan Peterson has probably been the most like healthy thing that's happened to people in the past like 10 years.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Like, because it's such basic bullshit. You shouldn't even have to be told these things. You should have a fucking dad or a mom or somebody who tells you these very basic, rudimentary things. But people don't. And that's what's so fucking sad.
We are an entire civilization that is living off of MREs. Okay, and this is coming from a person who literally buys military MREs and like eats them as a hobby.
That's because you like to party, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, we have an entire civilization. The only tangible difference between a military MRE and Betty Crocker is that there's like a like smiling black lady on the front of the syrup packet. Okay, like it's all made out of the same garbage shit. and we're living off of survival food. Like, we're an entire civilization living off of survival food. Our entire method of survival is to take food out of a packet, warm it up to 160 degrees, and slop it into our mouths.
Yeah.
Our machines do our washing for us. We have fucking Roombas that go around and suck up all of our potato chip crumbs and shit. We don't have to do anything, and so nothing is important. And it's almost like the less you have to do, the less important shit becomes, and the more disconnected you become with the actuality of the world around you.
100%. I totally agree. I mean, this is like you would think with people with all this free time people have, they would like try to enrich themselves, enrich their lives or whatever, but no. And it's because you're programmed to just like sit there and just fucking consume and just fucking watch whatever's on the goddamn TV. That's a bummer.
Yes, even the Godhead disappears into a black hole of quote-unquote pure sophistry.
As quickly as they'd first appeared, the Godheads blared off like a fucking annoying Harley gang, using their big triangular beaks to pierce and swim through the key atmosphere with great skill. Just as they reached the threshold of pure sophistry and prepared to blink out of this reality into another, the one Godhead who'd given him the free info turned back a final time to make sure JAIHOO was suitably awestruck. Our lad had the look of a sucker at a carnival, freshly swindled of his milk money by a clever ring-toss operator. This must have been good enough for the Godhead, who shortly thereafter darted into a wormhole, becoming infinitely dense and infinitely small, then, presumably, phasing out of the DMT dimension and giving birth to an entirely new multiverse of convoluted crap and sadistic scams somewhere else.
Yes.
Infinitely small and infinitely dense.
Which is amazing, because this is why I love Sam Hyde, and I think like a lot of it is because I feel like Sam Hyde is like of this in the same way that you and I are, Dan, where it's just like you know because you work a lot, you're always looking for content, you're always looking for something to listen to hear. Like I'm at home right now, like I'm at home all the time, so I'm always like looking for something to hear and listen to. I feel like he like listens to like the same things we do, because the references are so specific. Like that's so much like, oh, you must be kind of familiar with like the bro dude debaters. Like you have to be. You have to have at least listened to it at least a hot 12 hours or something.
I think that the examples that you gave.
Oh my God! You can't
last
answer
night.
a
The examples that you
question.
gave.
Holy shit! This is unreal. Are you guys watching this?
Wait.
I can't believe this right now. Why can't you just answer the question?
Right, to even have that vocabulary when you use the word like sophistry.
Which is interesting because now their new phase is to be like, we don't use words like that anymore. They're off-putting. Basically everybody, like for the people at home, everybody listens to whatever Destiny says and then they do it. Whether they like Destiny or not, they're like, Destiny's the best debater. He says we shouldn't say the words like fallacy and sophistry. He says we shouldn't say those things, so we shouldn't say them anymore, and so we don't. Like literally, it's unless you're Caleb. Let's go up to Caleb.
Happy Victory Day to all of you who celebrate the victory over fascism in the Second World War. Happy Victory Day. What's that? I got something on my face there. That's wild.
You do everything. It's like when after JAIHOO is coming home from literally slaughtering all the Haitian children with distended bellies that are making soccer balls, making like
yes. Oh my God.
He's feeling really bad about it. He's kind of questioning himself, but
these thoughts and many more zipped around inside JAIHOO's head like little hyperactive bunny rabbits on rollerblades for a grand total of 45 seconds before he was completely back to normal. Why was he so swiftly able to bounce back from the atrocity?
Then a little catchy tune comes on over his like radio inside his head.
Tonight's the night we're gonna find some daylight.
And he just completely forgets all about it.
Yeah. Honestly, the whole lead up when like the architect is like kind of explaining to him why he needs to do this stuff, and he's just like, I don't really agree with this guy, but he seems like he's pretty smart. Like that's like JAIHOO'S whole thing. He's like, well, I guess he's saying it, and he sounds like he knows what he's talking about, so I guess I'll do it.
He's initially so enraged that he has been captured by capitalism that he lashes out violently with fangs uncovered and reveals for the first time that he is of the vampire. It is like, first of all, that is something that just popped out of Sam Hyde's fucking head all of a sudden. And second of all, you know, it's like he's being set up to be so much the enemy of capitalism, but then literally paragraphs later, he's like smashing these Haitian children's head in with a baseball bat.
Ultimately, although the children seemed less sinister than destitute, it could not be denied that they were making unauthorized bootleg versions of officially sanctioned soccer merchandise that we all do love and enjoy. The spiked bat got him through the first dozen or so before breaking at the handle. He had to use his cyber legs to squeeze the rest to death, like Xenia Onatop from GoldenEye. Footnote: JAIHOO knew that anyone watching this would think it very bizarre at best, but he just didn't have the upper body strength to get it done any other way. The poor devils. Their little hunger bellies just couldn't handle the pure PSI of Jai's HKS-tuned shit kickers. In the end, popping like so many Jiffy Pop stovetop popping corn pans.
Yeah.
Because of just like this bullshit monologue that he's like, yeah, I can't really disagree with anything you say, so...
Which is like the most online thing ever. Like that's every Google Hangout you watched in 2016, where you would have like communists and libertarians like arguing with each other, and then agreeing on half of the. Well, I can't really argue with that, man. You know, governments are bad. Like, oh, thanks, guys. Thanks for 4 hours of nothing. Thank you. And that's another. You know, it's another like thing, and they kind of touch on it in the book a little bit is how young all of these people are, how young the intelligentsia, the appointed intelligentsia of like the millennial and Gen Z culture is. Like you're listening to people that are like literally college dropouts or college graduates that are like 24 years old, and you're learning about everything about capitalism, communism, philosophy, everything from these fucking people who have never actually lived any type of real lives. It fucking blows my mind. It is insane to me. Like, there's like 17, 18, 19, 21-year-olds. Like, listening to somebody like Vosh makes me want to fucking put my head in a fucking blender. Like, I'm just like, that, but that's what it is. Those are those communities. And I'm just like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, we are in some serious trouble because of this is a standard that we are setting. Like a dude that doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about is somebody we're going to follow into the trenches. And we're in some fucking trouble. There is something to be said about fucking, like, I remember it was like last year, my brother Dan and I from Zoobox Corporate, he was like, yeah, dude, they should lower the age to be president to like 24.
I don't have much time left. You know, I gotta get this done.
I was like, you're out of your fucking mind. You ever met a 24-year-old you want to fucking listen to about anything?
Seriously. Especially in this day and age when we're so infantilized and we're told that, you know, you're not even an adult until you're 21 years old. Whereas, you know, 150 years ago, if you were 14, you would have built your own cabin and had 2 children already.
I'm just thinking of like, I'm thinking of kids with dirt stashes and like rocking a baby, cutting wood.
Let's start out by talking about the youngest confirmed birth mother in medical history. Lina Medina was only 5 years old when she made history by giving birth in her home of Lima, Peru.
I'm serious. I mean, it's like, how far do you want to take the infantilization to the point where we have like adult man babies in diapers?
But since babies can't drink coffee, I have my juice.
Yay! Handy Manny is on!
When you take it to the most abysmal extremes, you get JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future. Apologies to everyone at home if there was just a hard cut. This will give you a little time to interact. And maybe this would be a good opportunity. We were just talking about the infantilizing of Americans. I just had to go deal with an actual infant. Maybe this would be a good time to talk about the interactivity of this book.
A note about interactivity. This ain't your mommy and daddy's book, Dyke Master. This is a fully revolutionized book, X.0, well beyond 2.0. We've taken the book and made it better. It's interactive. This book is interactive. Your interactions will have rippling consequences that will change the shape and thrust of this story and future stories in unforeseen ways. You must interact, as noted. And when a set of brackets present themselves, that is your time to interact. This is the rule of interactivity.
He poses it as like this choose your own adventure, but none of the options make any sense or even affect.
And he also only gives you one option.
Yes.
It's like smoke a cigar and stuff your head into a fucking cylinder.
If you have a gun in the house, make sure it's unloaded.
Then hold it to your head and scream!
Which is, I think, like, to me, like, I always took the interacts as like a Sam Hyde's id. It's like the secret voice inside, you know, like his impulsive, like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like as Sam Hyde is reading along with his own story, he's got this other random thought that explodes through his synapses like a nuclear bomb, and he has to stop what he's doing to bring it to you. And he uses the interactivity as like a way to do that.
Interact! Go out and buy a condom and try to put it on a banana with your mouth. If you can't do it in under 3 seconds, you don't deserve to lick the brownish juice from Khaleesi's unwashed labia.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
He's like, interact, gaslight your girlfriend.
Oh my god, yes.
Interact, take your entire life savings and put it into a hunch.
I almost sent you a picture of that because I was like scrolling through the ebook and I saw that and I was like, it was like gaslight your girlfriend, like, and it was in interesting font.
And it was like, you know, the whole bit like, interact, you can run from the police and win. You can get away with just about anything if you put a vinyl wrap on your motorcycle. That's like, Sam, stop. What are you saying, Sam?
Well, that's always like, that's the thing about Sam Hyde. I think, you know, and it's kind of a little bit of a get out of jail free card for him, is that I do think like he is somebody that is not so much in JAIHOO, but I think in like his further work after, especially after the $1 Million Extreme kind of ended, was that he became kind of an advice guy.
You don't have to become a total unlovable, woman-hating, porn addict freak based on that information. You can just throw out, you can pick and choose the pieces that you want, and anything that you think is too severe, you can just throw out.
An advice guide to millennials and Zoomers.
But he does it through like the guise of comedy. Like, so it's like you can take it seriously if you want to or not. So there's this weird kind of place where he exists in, where it's like, well, like where am I supposed to be taking this? Because I think some of the stuff is very sincere, and then other times, like, I'm not so sure. And it doesn't show up so much in the book. It shows up in the interact sections, I suppose, in a very like abstract way. But I mean, like, do you keep up with like Hyde Wars and stuff like that?
I keep up with it in so much as like clips from it get posted on certain channels on YouTube that I follow. Mm-hmm. Up until I started to get serious with Butcher Pete's, I was a follower of his Gumroad for a very long time. $5 a month contributor there to the Gumroad. And it only was until about 1.5 years ago, I guess, when we had Theo, and I kind of had to like go, what subscriptions am I going to keep here? Yeah. I cut out, he hadn't released Smokeade 4 at that point, so I said, look, I'm going to have to just cut out the Gumroad. But I keep up with it now, and so much that like when there's a good clip of it on YouTube, I'll check it out. And he's full of good clips, especially the one recently when he's talking about, and they talk about it here at the beginning of JAIHOO too, the female cop.
If you ever catch the eye of a female cop, hope you wore your bulletproof vest. Hope you got your vest on, man. I'm praying for you, unironically, because that gun on her waist at some point is going to accidentally go off. She's going to draw it out thinking it's a taser. She's going to have her finger on the trigger before she's ready to fire.
The officer drew their handgun instead of their taser.
Something you did made her feel threatened. You're taller than her. She feels threatened for her life. The only recourse she has physically is to shoot you.
This was an accidental discharge.
I just hope that if you ever get pulled over by a woman, you're wearing a fucking bulletproof vest and a Kevlar helmet.
And someone actually made like a mashup of that clip with the woman going, taser, taser, taser.
I was going to say, about that, yeah. Holy shit.
That, like, sorry, I'm not being sexist out there. Male cops are assholes and incompetents too. But that one particular clip was very prescient because Sam Hyde had just done that bit about the female cop shooting someone. Once again, he's always 5 minutes ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it's the turn he has made. Like, I kind of hope at some point that he kind of comes back to, in the same way that I guess he did with this book, was come back to a little bit more like scripted material. I enjoy Hyde Wars, I guess, just as much as the next person, but I do think I have, in a weird way, like, I think I'm a little too old for it. And I think some of it is just like, yeah, I know that. Like, I think the same things you do. Like, and I don't necessarily need to hear it from a dude that's like fucking really high, which is maybe not fair. And it doesn't mean it's not like funny.
Well, I mean, on a recent episode of it, he said it himself. Like, somebody wrote in and they were taking suggestions at the end of the show, and one of the suggestions was like more red pills. And he was like, dude, I think we got all the red pills. I think we turned all that over. You know what I mean? We turned over all that ground.
Yeah. I mean, because he has a worldview that extends as far as it extends. And like, that's, I don't see Sam Hyde as a guy that's like, oh, he's not a panderer. Like, so many of these guys, like what's a great example? Like somebody like a Tim Pool, right? They found something that worked for them. And they just go hard in the paint for it until it doesn't work anymore. And then they shift. Then they shift their paradigm. And now they're like, oh, like, Tim Pool was like a Trump dude for 2 years. And now he's like an anti-state guy. You're like, okay, dude, like, I see what you're doing. Like, I see what's going on. Like, I don't know if it's like, it's partially organic, partial disillusionment. But Sam Hyde is not like that. Sam Hyde, like, for however his faults or whatever, at least has like a code of conduct. He has a principle that he lives by, and he espouses that, like, regardless if it feels convenient to people. Like, he's not gonna go be like trolling, like, what is the hottest red pill take? What can I say to get people to buy my shit, to listen to my podcast? I don't get that vibe from him at all. Like, at all. And I think
he does the kind of the Hyde Wars stuff just to pay the bills still.
Yeah.
To fund his like larger projects like Yahoo, and apparently he's like working on a fucking video game that has been for several years.
It's not past that door either. Looks like that one leads to the crisis actor theater school classroom. That's it! You found it! The mind upload scan of John McCain's brain tumor. If you fuck this up, we're gonna set off every alarm in the place. Oh. 46. This place is haunted by the souls of aborted fetuses.
I would really like to play that if he ever actually finishes it. But, with these things with Sam Hyde, you never even know if they're real. I mean, he talked about JAIHOO'S trip to the future for several years, and I always thought that he was taking the piss. I always thought that he was talking about,
like a meta joke?
Like a meta joke where he's saying, oh, my future projects, and he doesn't actually have any future projects lined up, but he says JAIHOO'S trip to the future as like a string of like fake future projects that he has.
Yeah.
And, the truth is, I think that Sam Hyde is a really hard-working entertainer who has a sort of business-like approach to his his craft. And
see, I would push back a little bit. I don't think he has a business guy approach, in the sense that he's just like, I'm going to do what I want to do. This is the best thing that, like, if you're ever in a band, if you're doing anything like creative, do not seek out an audience by pandering. Like, you got to be yourself. You got to do your own thing.
Perhaps businessman approach is the wrong way. He has a very workman-like.
No, yeah. Oh, he puts the work in for sure. Yeah.
You know, he's going to go in and pull an 8 to 6.
Oh, even his vlogs, even his throwaway vlogs are like, I got 6 GoPros and a fucking, like, I got a dude editing and he's making my head float everywhere. And
yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah.
So, you know, he puts the work in, and I think that that's evident, and I think he always does have these larger projects in the background. He's run into a situation now where, because $1 Million Stream is blacklisted from the entertainment industry for all of forever, or until the people who currently run the industry no longer run the industry, you know, until that day comes, Sam Hyde is never going to be on an active network. He's never going to be getting paid by somebody else to do his thing. He's always going to have to be selling his own brand. Yeah. And that's an incredibly difficult thing to do. So I think that what he's probably doing is putting out a lot of, like, the Hyde War stuff and the Gum Road stuff is like, you know, that's chum for the fishes. That's chum for the sharks.
You got to keep content flowing.
Larger projects like JAIHOO and stuff like that, or how to bomb the U.S. government, you know, which I probably shouldn't have bought. Might be why I didn't get that job at the post office. Definitely bought that and then sold it on eBay. But anyway, you know, he has these larger projects that keep coming out every few years, and I think that he's not joking. Like, I don't think that the video game is a joke. I think that he's actually working on it behind the scenes, and if it never comes out, it's because he couldn't get it good enough to put it out.
No, and I would totally agree with that. Like, I don't think that he is not, like, a workhorse at all. Like, that stuff is not like it's not like just a nothing to just sit there and film shit for fucking hours. Like, it's not. And then if you want to be interesting, then you got to do work. You got to, like, you know, you have to kind of, like, prepare for things, and as I'm slowly learning, like, you have to do those. You actually have to put, like, effort and prep into stuff like that. And
Sam is very big on the aesthetic, the way things look and feel, and he's not going to just put out. I mean, for a person who made an entire era out of holding cell phones and making vertical videos in front of a mirror.
See what you're looking at right now? I'm androgynous. What that means is I'm neither a man nor a woman. When I think about myself, in my head, I think about a person. I don't think about a man with a beard and a penis, or a woman with a vagina and breasts. I think about a person. Do not sexualize me.
His later stuff definitely goes above and beyond, even to his transition menus in between the transition graphics and stuff. Like, you know, what they built for the aesthetic of the transition style for world peace, like in between scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
To this day, he finds advertising from all over the world and posts it on his Instagram that's in that exact style, and is like, fuck, you know what I mean? Like, look at what we created.
Oh, they were tapping into something so primal when they did world peace. I mean, I honestly, I was so dumbfounded that even back then, or what, it was 2016, like, somebody let them put that on TV.
Yeah.
It was so subversive and so, like, transgressive, and I was like, holy fuck. I was like, this is on fucking TV? Like, in this, even for the era before people, like, kind of lost their minds. I was like, holy shit. Like, this is like, and it really spoke, I think, to, I guess maybe people our age. I don't know. Is it people our age that really glom onto this shit, or is it just, are we super hip, Dan?
It's people our age or younger. I don't think that if you're a boomer, or very few Gen Xers will, like, get $1 million. Like, I don't think there's a boomer on the planet that would get $1 million stream skit. Like, it just doesn't. It's just in a completely different language. And boomers are all on the fucking moon anyway. They're all in a fucking timeshare on the moon. And I think that it happens to be so online and so in the language of the internet that you're not going to get it unless you're at least our age or younger. But it's probably mostly for Zoomers.
But it's aggressively so. I mean, like, World Peace, the sketch that always sticks out in my mind is the one when the wife falls through the glass table.
Brother, I'm not going to invite you over to my beautiful home, have a wine party, so I can throw your wife through a table.
You tripped her, Nick.
She can say whatever she wants, but I didn't trip your wife. I didn't trip you. You fat.
Yes.
I'm like, I cannot believe that got on TV.
Yeah, well, even when I first saw that sketch, I was put the fuck off, dude. I was like, what am I even watching right now?
Yeah.
It's a couple of viewings for me to sort of get
like the ironic layers of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like you had to peel a lot of this stuff off of it.
They are not holding your hand.
No.
Like I said, it's lizard brain shit. Like, it's fucking primally funny. And it's also very online at the same time because of the milquetoast kind of way that Sam Hyde character acts. That this dude just like tripped his wife into a glass table. He's like, "Whoa, bro!"
Hey,
like,
hey guy.
Like, what are you talking about, man? Like, and Nick just is so fucking delivers so beautifully.
You're gonna sit here and point fingers at me, and she's gonna crawl around on my $1,900 rug, bleeding from her eye sockets, and trying to tell me that I shoved her through a goddamn table. You're crazy as she is.
And the way he does in all of that stuff. Actually, probably, if I were to say for this episode, secret MVP, probably Nick. Just like the way he like aggressive, like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? I would never fucking do something like that. Why the fuck would you say something like that, man? And his fucking stupid balding head and his long hair, and it's fucking like in his face, and he's all sweaty and gross. And
he convinces his brother that it was the wife's fault.
I think you're right.
You owe me $2,000.
And they all just start laughing. Yeah.
I don't want to diss Charles Carroll because I love Charles Carroll, but I think Nick Rochford was a really unsung aspect of $1 Million Extreme.
No, he's like the oh my god, there's a guy in Monty Python, Michael Palin. He's the guy in Quest for the Holy Grail that's like they find it in a mud pit, and he's like, it's the violence inherited in the system. It's the violence inherited in the system. As the guy's like trying to choke him because he's talking against the monarchy.
Right.
He's like the Michael Palin of $1 Million Extreme. I mean, $1 Million Extreme is like holds such a weird, special place in my heart, like because it came at a time where I was just like, fuck yeah, like I know exactly what you're talking about. This shit is getting weird and out of control, and like especially like even before they have the Cartoon Network show, before they had the Adult Swim show, when they were just doing like the man on the street stuff and like going to the college campuses.
May I ask you what races you are? Mixed race. You're mixed race? What about you?
I don't really know. So my family's Turkish.
Uh-huh.
But I guess I'm very white passing, and I grew up in Mexico.
White passing. Now that's important because that means you can get away with white privilege. Am I right?
Right.
That's right. New lessons, folks. Flip-flops and socks. That's black privilege. Sometimes you just gotta shut up and let Whitey do the talking. Okay?
At Harry Potter College.
And Sam Hyde's in there with a sign going into like Abercrombie and Fitch, calling a black guy a colonizer.
Yeah.
Why are you wearing the clothes of a colonizer, bro? Shouldn't do that. It's fucked up. Like.
And you know, Charles Carroll's holding the sign that says "No more dead black babies."
You're Planned Parenthood? Yeah. Right on. All right on there. Hey, my friend Chuck wants to talk to you. How do you explain this when it comes to Planned Parenthood? 40 million black babies dead from 1940 something, 1970 something onward. How do you guys explain this at Planned Parenthood? Lamborghinis? How do you explain Lamborghinis for baby body parts?
Alright.
I'm just trying to be honest.
I'm just trying to be honest.
And it's like, dude, it's just the fucking switcheroo, the okey doke that they pull on people in that skit is so great.
Like, it's crazy because that could be like sincere, or it could be ironic, and it still works.
Yeah,
it still works. Like, because you're just the object is, I'm gonna make you uncomfortable. Like, you thought something, you're in sort of paradigm. Like, I'm going to give you something you haven't thought about. Like, what are you doing? Because this is the rules that you want us to live by. You want us to live by these stupid fucking weird rules? Here you go. Let's go on the street and see if you actually feel this way. And they were kind of at the forefront of that stuff. I mean, like, the TED Talk.
I present to you Sam Hyde, 2070 Paradigm Shift. Sam.
Okay, hey, I wanted to start sitting down anyway. Guys, pat yourselves on the back right now, okay? Let's do it, come on. There we go. You two, you're patting each other, that's cheating. You couldn't keep your hands off her, could you? Yeah, hey, I don't blame you. She is a cutie.
Yeah. I mean, the TED Talk is all-time comedy gold. I mean, that's like, that's Andy Kaufman-esque. That's Kaufman-esque, like the guy from Taxi, and like that's what that is.
Any justice in this world, Sam Hyde's 2070 Paradigm Shift would go down in history with the likes of Tony Clifton and shit like that.
100%. I mean, he's like getting people to pat themselves on the back, and he just gives this dissertation of nonsense. The only weakness I would say in that TED Talk is that Sam Hyde is Sam Hyde, and he makes himself laugh.
What inspires me is teaching African refugees how to program JavaScript. What inspires me,
which is fine, which is like I get it. I make myself laugh all the time. Ask my wife. But like I get it, but like at the same, but like if he had just been able to just fucking do it, like just straight and just never break.
Yes.
Like that would be like amazing.
Unfortunately, Sam Hyde, as you know, Sam Hyde's comedy talents stretch in many different directions, but stand-up comedy is not one of them.
He's also, I think he's too self-aware. Like there's a self-awareness that comes where you're just like, when you realize like what you're doing and what you're saying.
Yes. And a lot of comedy is yucking it up, telling jokes, hitting the comedic beats, and being on time and not looking like you're doing it. And like you said, Sam is too self-aware to put himself in that position. But you know, he has so many almost great stand-up routines. Like there's one called, I think it's just called Boston Stand-Up. And he goes on for like an hour in like an apartment in Allston in front of all these kids, and he's going off of sheets of paper and stuff. And it's like, if he had put a good solid 60 hours of rehearsal into the set, he could have had like a perfect comedy set.
He delivered one perfect comedy set, and that was the inversion of the black comic with the white comic.
Can't live in my mama crib. Can't be living at my mama crib. Your mama get home, whole house smell like pussy. Whole house smell like pussy. Your mama be like, Kevin, what you doing on in here? Now you know a cracker can't be lying on his mama. So what you gonna tell your mama? Nothing, mama. Just making sourdough bread from scratch. Shit, white like a cracker do.
Well, that's just it. Is that, you know, there's a distinction here. When Sam Hyde is doing a routine where he's making the audience uncomfortable,
he loves it. He nails it.
The audience on YouTube, like he's making the audience in the room uncomfortable for the sake of the audience on YouTube. That's when he shines. But when he actually has to make the audience in the room laugh and do like a comedy routine, he doesn't have the timing. He doesn't have the memorization. He doesn't want to be doing these little bits.
No.
He wants to be making a farce of that.
No, he feeds off of the absurdist nature of what he does and making the audience the punchline. Sam Hyde does not need to make jokes. He doesn't make jokes when especially if you watch any of the stand-up stuff. and I can't remember the name of it, but like there is a set that he did. It's like 20 minutes long, and all he does is he does black comedian jokes, and he inverts the races. He just like a white like as opposed to black. That's all he does, and he just does it, and he doesn't break. It's like I think it's like a 17-minute clip. He does not break really. Yeah. I think he like a couple times he has to take a second and like turn around, but he does not really break. And I think what you hit the nail on the head is that like he's there. If he knows that he has the audience like kind of slowly turning against him, he loves it. He feeds off of it. Like it's what he wants. He doesn't want people to almost like genuinely engage with what he's doing sometimes. He just wants you to fucking suffer through something. And it's like an anarchic, like kind of fun spirit that I've always really respected and I can get behind.
Yes, he has a terroristic comment, which is why it's so fitting that possible as a mass shooter directly after a mass shooting.
Which was actually, you know what's funny? I think that's how I found out about Sam Hyde. Was the mass shooter meme.
Yes.
So this would have been like 2013, 2014. It's like him standing with an M14. And
from a skit where he keeps calling out John Oliver and Lena Dunham.
Peacekeeper. John Oliver. This whole video has been a joke, John Oliver. But if it came down to it, Hollywood with this, and I don't care. I'll use this like a microphone. Proper safety. Check if it's loaded.
Yeah.
And then just firing an automatic weapon.
No, but it showed the power of like meme magic at the time that like they put that shit on local news stations.
Learning any more about how investigators are now piecing information together. Do you know anything about the attacker?
We don't. It was reported to me that he's actually not from this community. Apparently, his name was released as Sam Hyde. That was the name I was given of Sam Hyde, who caused this event. And
oh yeah, and they did it like a dozen times, like several different shootings. Yes. They got the media to say that Sam Hyde did it, and several of them, yes, they put that picture of him holding up the assault rifle. And it's just absolutely brilliant.
I think it must have been Mr. Medicare, Mr. Aristocrat, John 388, whatever you want to call him. I think that's probably the first time I saw it because he was like doing live streams about the shootings that were going on in the country. And he was definitely instrumental in being like, oh my God, suspected terrorist Sam Hyde. And like, there's 25,000, 30,000 people watching this dude's streams. Back in the day when he was like the internet aristocrat. He might have been Mr. Medicare at this time, but like, and he's just like,
oh boy, another day of protests in Minneapolis have turned tragic after Sam Hyde deployed a team of tactical racists on scene, who have begun hunting down protesters and murdering them.
Showing the picture over and over again. Like 10 hours later, it's on the local news. I was like, holy shit. Like, this is out of control. This is insane. So I looked out, I saw the picture. I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, I was just like a dumb normie. I was like, who the fuck is that? Is that really the shooter? Of
course it was, and he keeps getting away with it.
Yeah. Well, and then there was those guys who went down to one of the police protests a couple years ago, and they were making memes on their cell phones about Sam Hyde, talking about Sam Hyde, and somebody like contacted the police and they got arrested. Like, it was crazy. It's crazy.
It's probably why Sam Hyde has so many jokes about gang stalking in JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future. He's like constantly bringing up voluntary and involuntary gang stalking. Like, in the future, people actually volunteer to be gang stalked by people.
More than a few high-powered people frustrated with the seeming randomness of ZAB13's decision-making process have resorted to fluoride therapy, home penectomies, voluntary gang-stalking arrangements, and electroshock gaming in a futile attempt to match Griz's voting muscle.
Which, I don't know if you've ever done gang stalking on Nightcap, but you should look into gang stalking. It's very interesting.
It's on the list, actually, because I learned a lot about it a few years ago, and then I found out that I have an uncle that thinks he was gang stalked. Yeah. Like, really, like, legit, like, was, like, go-to movies, and he would see, like, things in previews, he'd be like, they're telling me they're watching me. Yeah.
That's tricky, man. That's really top level shit right there.
Yeah, I know, and I don't know. You know, if I ever do a Nightcap, I'll get into it, I suppose. Or if we get off here, I'll get into it. But, yeah, no, that's on the list for Nightcap is gang stalking for sure, because it's such a weird subculture of like people with schizophrenia.
So, guys, I'm a targeted individual, and I find out that I'm targeted individual since 2012.
Which is what it is. That's really what it is. People
it's schizophrenia in the modern age where you have like a cell phone.
Yeah, and you like imagine if you had a mental disorder and you say whatever you want to into a camera and you post it online. All these and then people like feed into your psychosis. They feed into your problem. They're like, oh my god, I've been gang stalked too. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, and then it just makes it worse, exacerbates it. Yeah, it gets to some weird places. Luckily, I think my uncle kind of found himself out of that. Put a little happy ending on that story for my personal anecdote. But my mom was, I remember like a few years ago, my mom was like, yeah, like these people are following him. He goes to movies. He thinks that the movies are telling him things. I was like, Mom, that's called gang stalking. You guys should look into it.
It's called 12 Monkeys. It happens in the 12 Monkeys. Another time traveling tale.
Exactly. When my father's angry, the world shakes.
But, you know, it's funny that you brought up the JAIHOO. Speaking of fathers, it's funny that you brought up JAIHOO being kind of a Steven Spielberg type character because he also has an absent father.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. This is a Steven Spielberg movie. He should make several Academy Award nominated. That was one of the lines that made me laugh the hardest.
In some ways, it was a little uncomfortable because not only was Adolf Hitler there, and not only were alien versions of Hitler there, who, by the way, had all committed insane atrocities in their galaxies, atrocities which defied belief. Trust me, okay? You don't even want to hear about Banja 51X. That guy was brutal. But there were also a nearly infinite number of alternate reality Hitlers, some of whom had killed 7 or 8 or even 9 million Scooby Wutsits, Buggy Muggers, Gloppity Gloopers, Jibby Boners, Scoop Scoons, etc., all out of a misguided desire to politically scapegoat for no reason. JAIHOO had half a mind to make several dozen Academy Award-nominated movies about it.
But, you know, I'm basically, I hate to say it, but I'm coming up on the end of my notes for JAIHOO, basically because it's like you said, like, I felt like I could take notes for everything because there are so many little things that are just fucking hilarious. And they don't necessarily contribute to like the larger theme or anything. It's just like something that makes you laugh and chortle out loud. You know what I mean?
I think
all over the book.
No, I agree. I think like some of it, I think a lot of it isn't. I think a lot of it is what I would call not ephemeral, but non sequitur. It's non sequitur stuff.
Yes.
Non sequitur, right? But like even through this conversation, like just talking about some of the plot points, some of the elements, some like the book ripping thing. My little tangent about the book ripping thing. That came to me as we were talking. I actually hadn't thought about it that deeply until we were talking about it.
Well, you definitely had a lot of changa before you came on here.
Oh, I definitely did. I definitely ripped a fucking sweet bang before I got on here. But I think it is something that like would be great if there was a community of people to talk about it, because I think there's a lot of things to dissect, whether it's intentional or not.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I made you do this, because it's like I need to have someone to talk to about this fucking
Exactly, because it's so insane, and it's so, and that's one of the great things about Profitt here, is that Profitt is one of the very few people where I could do something like this with. Like, who the fuck else knows in my life knows about who Sam Hyde is? Nobody. Like, I've introduced him to my brothers. And they would never fucking like admit that they think it's as funny as they do. Like when I show them Officer Maggot.
Listen, what you need is a strong man to protect you. You understand me?
Yes, sir.
I'm a big man. I can help you. Nobody messes with me. You'd be my princess. You ever hear a shut ya?
Shut ya.
Shut your mouth.
Yep.
What? Ever hear a quit ya? Quit ya bitchin'. That's right, son. I got all kinds of cop words to say at you all night. Woo! Woo! It's gonna be a bumpy ride. You know what would happen to you if I took you down to jail for the night, put you in lockup with some hardened criminals?
No,
you want to go spend a night with some blacks? In a black room with black people? You like black people? No, you don't.
My brother's like on the floor peeing his pants. Like, because Officer Maggot is hilarious. Like, it's fucking so over the top, Officer Maggot. Like, you can't. I think that might have been the first thing I showed my brother Ryan was Officer Maggot.
That's one of Sam Hyde's classics. I mean, that's one of the skits that, like, if we lived in a fair world, that would be on a DVD release of like Sam Hyde's greatest hits. Like before Adult Swim, it'd be like a special DVD release.
Dude, if he had done that in 2006, that would have been a fucking sketch show on Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Like Officer Maggot is like, it's provocative, but it's really not that. It's not offensive in a way that, like, if you're an asshole, if you're not an asshole, like, it's really not. Like, it's playing on all these different layers of stereotypes. And it's not like giving into any of them. One of the craziest things I found with, like, especially the MDE era, like when they obviously filmed a lot of stuff when they were there doing their Adult Swim show that had nothing to do with the Adult Swim show. I think Officer Maggot came from that because they were in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's where the sketch where they have all the moms. And they're pretending to be teenage boys, and they're like literally reading off of scripts.
So Derek's parents are Barb and Barry, right? This makes me think Barry has a big old dick. Haha. Anyway, another dream. This time it's a weird one. Barry and me are having a dick measuring contest, and Barb was judging. My dick is big guys, but Barry's was like huge. Haha. Anyway, Barb felt sorry for me, so she said mine was bigger, even though it clearly wasn't. First prize was a blowjob from her, and I won it. She was sucking me, and I had to give Derek's dad second prize, so I jerked him off and squeezed his balls till he was cooming.
Like, that's the crazy thing about, like, $1 Million Extreme and Sam Hyde. It's like there's so many meta layers to everything. Like, he knows that you know that he's joking. Right. And he doesn't care if you know. So he knows that it's funny, like, hey, we hired a bunch of middle-aged actresses, and we're going to say horrible things to them. And the fact that you see us reading it off a script really doesn't matter, because that's not the point. The point, like, that's what we were talking about before, like this thriving on this uncomfortable nature of making just people feel uncomfortable. And that's a good thing. To me, that's a good thing. Like, fucking feel uncomfortable sometimes. Like, it's okay to do that. It's okay to have somebody, like, call out your bullshit or call out, like, your normie status. Like, just fucking go with it sometimes. You're going to be all right. Especially because it's not even really happening. Which is, I guess, a theme in JAIHOO as well. Like, all the stuff that people get such in a tizzy about and like get so mad about, and they're so angry and they're so this thing, somebody said this thing to me online, and it's not even really happening. It's not even really happening. It's completely fake. There's like a young rapper said it the best, Tyler the Creator. Like there's a famous tweet of his before he left Twitter forever, apparently. He was just like he's like, how can you be bullied online? Just log off. Just log off. How can you be bullied online? That's the most ridiculous thing ever. Just log off.
Right. I remember that becoming a meme.
Yes, yeah. And Tyler the Creator, one of the last of the goofy fuckers online. Honestly, I don't know if you've ever seen.
He's made some Sam Hyde references on television since he's made.
Have you ever seen a Loiter Squad?
Betty, calm down! Is he down?
Yeah.
Check his pulse?
Check this pulse. Up.
Oh.
What is this?
That's the weapon he had.
He had a knife in his hand.
That's it.
Had a knife in his hand.
No.
Okay, he had a show on Adult Swim called Loiter Squad, which was very much like $1 Million Extreme. And it's the same kind of subversive shit, but they're a bunch of black kids, so nobody cares. I mean, they're calling people faggots. They're doing everything. They're like, and this was in like 2015, 2016.
Yeah,
produced by the guy Jeff. What's his name? The guy who did all the Jackass stuff.
I mean, certain special concessions are made. Sarah Silverman can do blackface. It's almost like it's who you know. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's who you know.
It's almost like if you live in the burg. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and depends on what area of France you come from too. But you know, it's just an absolute shame that because of something like politics, that the comedy of a man like Sam Hyde and a comedy troupe like $1 Million, a comedy troupe like $1 Million Extreme only comes along once in a lifetime. They could have been the state of the Zoomers. They could have been the kids in the Zoomers.
Yeah, like the late millennials and Zoomers. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, but it's so upsetting because it's so perfect and it's not like, it's like, you know, like we grew up in a time where like Tim and Eric were like the big thing,
right?
Like on Adult Swim, right? What is $1 Million Extreme is literally the heir apparent to Tim and Eric. Like, they are literally the internet Zoomer millennial version of Tim and Eric. Like, that is, like, I mean, not exactly, but like the same type of transgressive humor. You know, hey, $1 Million Extreme just didn't use retarded people to laugh at. Sorry, guys. You know, like, you know, Tim and Eric, that was fine. But, like, you know, $1 Million Extreme makes a joke about, like, it makes a Nazi joke, and you guys are fucking losing your minds.
Actually, you may be mistaken because Sam Hyde has an entire bit called Retard Kyle.
Yeah, but not on Cartoon Network that he didn't.
Oh, certainly no.
No. That's what I'm saying. Tim and Eric made an industry of taking mentally retarded people, putting them on camera, and asking them stupid questions as if they were children.
My favorite race is called the Corinthians. When they say hello and goodbyes, they say Salome.
Like, that's literally half of Tim and Eric's output was that. And I don't, you know, and I don't even have a problem with that. You go fucking do that. But Tim Heidecker apparently being one of the reasons why they were ousted from Cartoon Network is so bizarre to me. It's so hypocritical, and it sucks because I like some of the stuff Tim Heidecker does. I have like a conscious pangs. I'm like,
I never got to know them because I could just hate Tim Heidecker completely. Tim and Eric, is that Eric Warenheim?
Warenheim, yeah.
He looks French too. But like, I really fucking despise Tim and Eric because I never got to. They never got to be young.
Yeah.
All I know of Tim Heidecker is that he ruined Sam Hyde's career, and that he did hack shit on Adult Swim like 10 years ago.
Yes. Yeah. And now he's like, he does like, and I hate, dude. I really, because I knew we were talking about this, and I was like, I was watching some Tim Heidecker stuff the other night. He does this thing called On Cinema.
Chloe Grace Moritz and Nicholas Hoult. A bunch of no names. I'm sick of looking at these movies that don't have people I know in them. Okay? Where the hell's Tom Hanks? Get Tom Hanks in there. You got to make more movies with Tom Hanks.
He's in a lot of movies.
He's not.
Which is this like very meta online like movie review show. And it's actually pretty funny. And I fucking hate that it's funny.
Well, you can be funny and evil.
That's true.
I mean, who was that asshole who like broke all the barriers and took comedy to a completely different thing, but all he was doing was wiener jokes? What was his name in the 50s there?
Oh, in the 50s? Are you in the 30s?
60s?
Oh, in the 60s.
That comedian?
That guy, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
I forget, but...
I literally know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name.
I mean, all these comedians back in the day who were quote-unquote pushing boundaries, and it was just like pee-pee poo-poo, here's a penis, here's a vagina, here's a poo-poo.
I got my tongue up this chick's ass, right? No, you're gonna like this. I just told my mother this one on the phone, you know?
My wife. Can you believe she's having her period right now? I wanted to fuck.
It's just like, you know, you have Lisa Lampanelli like, hey, I fucked 27 black guys. Their cum's still running out of me.
The babies are running down my leg as I speak.
Or, you know, even
Don't
like,
you know what you're talking about, Norm Macdonald?
Listen, I'm sorry. I know I'm going to offend a lot of people here, most specifically Joe Rogan, but like Bobcat Goldthwait.
Oh, trash, dude. Come on.
Yeah, like all that, like that trash comedy that's just like...
Imagine thinking that dude is funny. Like, this is like a litmus test where you like, yo, dude, we're going to watch Police Academy 2. I just want to watch you for a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, you have this trash comedy that's exalted. You have... you know, people who don't go any further than the shock or the stinky, oh, my vagina's so stinky, or, you know,
yes.
Like Sam Hyde lampoons and the Gutter Man thing, like, black people do this and white people do this.
Exactly.
And it's so fucking tiresome. And then you have actual comedians like $1 Million Extreme who, you know, they get buried because they're not on board. They're not playing ball, and that sucks.
Yeah, but which is crazy because of 10 years ago, they would have been fine. Like, that's the crazy thing about them is that, like, they are transgressive, but in no really deeper way than, like, Tosh .0 when he came out. Honestly, like, not really that much, like, crazier than that. Because most of the stuff was like, most of what their comedy is actually like an examination of the male id. Like, it's not even that like spicy most of the time.
Well,
like, no, because everybody's gonna laugh at the douchebag drinking milk and lifting weights. Like things like that are gonna be fine.
There's examinations of certain things that $1 Million Extreme would do. Like, for example, if you go on YouTube and you look at the clip of Sam Hyde pushing the boulder up the hill.
Listen up and listen good. Since the beginning of recorded history, the white man's been coming up with technologies, cultures, civilizations worth keeping, worth saving, worth giving a damn about.
Thank you, white man, for inventing the computer, the microwave, medicine, electricity, sanitation, theory of evolution, and we was king.
This work hangs.
Which was a cut sketch. Did not make it on television.
but it was filmed. And
insane.
if you just go watch that skit, and you'll see everything in that skit that shows you why they never made it any further than they did.
Well, because like if you're willing to be that offensive, or like, you know, quote unquote offensive and subversive, no. But at the same time, though, it was only because people complained. Like, you could have a sense of be like, okay, we're not going to use that sketch. As far as like Sam Hyde tells it, in terms of like their Adult Swim career, it was that the producers were very happy because they got a lot of viewers.
Right, and it wasn't until it got kicked up to the larger broadcasting company.
And the way that they got us taken off was that they basically complained up the food chain at Adult Swim and then up at Turner, which is the company that owns Adult Swim, until they finally were emailing Jeff Zucker, the guy in charge of Turner. And these media executives, you know, they get these emails from people who are they've got like a credential signature, like at the bottom of their email, like journalists for BuzzFeed Media, and they think it's like the end of the world because they don't understand that like this shit gets no traction unless they like allow it to, and that's what they did. Is they freaked out, and they basically they gave BuzzFeed and others like BuzzFeed all the power by like bending the knee and doing what they were asking and taking the show down.
I mean, like, basically Sam Hyde had the audacity to act like an edgy 2010 person. Like, that's what he got kind of nailed for. And he didn't even get nailed. There's one article that was just like, I think it was at the New York Times or the Daily Beast or one of these outlets that really did him in. I don't even think it was Joe Bernstein. I know it's Joe Bernstein because he did an interview with Joe Bernstein where he just fucked with him for 20 minutes.
Dude, that interview with Joe Bernstein is one of the best things that Sam Hyde ever did.
Do you want to attribute this to your system?
I want to be totally straightforward with you. You will never, in a million years, get a job at a publication as prestigious as the New York Times. That little pipe dream is never going to happen. You will be blogging and tweeting until you are dead, and nobody will care. Nobody will ever read anything you wrote and say to themselves, "Man, this is important! I need to know more about this!" Nobody's ever going to read a page that you wrote and say to themselves, "Damn, I'm glad I read that." They're just gonna, it's just fucking popcorn. You write the mental equivalent of popcorn, and you will never get a job at the New York Times. They'll look at your resume and they'll go, this guy's a fucking idiot. What do you think about that?
Sam, look, thank you for talking. I appreciate it, even though you sound kind of worked out.
One more thing. I bet when you were a kid, your parents called you dumb. They probably called you a blockhead, because you're a blockhead, Joe. You don't pay attention in school, Joe.
I can't. I just having trouble hearing you because you're screaming very loud.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, man. Take care.
All right, buddy. Peace.
I mean, that's where Sam Hyde really exists in his prime, is being off the cuff and in your face, and making fun of somebody who would unironically use a term like off the cuff and in your face.
Well, because he skewers kind of preciousness. He skewers like people that take themselves too seriously, a world that takes itself too seriously, but also has like an underlying point to his like skewering, his criticism. Even the silliest shit, even the dumbest shit that you don't think matters or means anything, like we brought up before. Like the sketch, like that turned us both off at the time, the sketch where the girlfriend or the wife falls into the glass table. I think that is a litmus test about what you're gonna get out of them as like a more of a whole. It's probably the most accurate representation of that collective out of anything they produced, because it is provocative. It is like really makes you like cringe. You'd be like, what the fuck is happening? How the fuck am I supposed to feel about this?
A couple of weeks later, you're smirking to yourself, going, "Hey, big guy, what's the problem?"
Yeah.
The dryness of it settles on your tongue.
But it's also just like, it is the shit you did when you were 16. It's the shit you said to your friends, but smarter.
Yeah.
Like, that's what makes it so attractive to me, was that it captures this youthful anarchism of like, of just like dirty jokes and subversive humor. And I mean, maybe I was just lucky to grow up with like a group of people, like especially when I was younger, that like we were a little bit edgy, we're a little bit subversive, we're a little bit like willing to kind of go there with each other sometimes.
Oh, we certainly were.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, I'm not going to say his name, but it rhymes with Nutella. He had a car. He had a white car that had a horse's head on the top of it. And if anybody knows about this, we wrote the most horrific shit on his car in Sharpie.
I remember everything about this.
Yes, there was a lot of rape jokes.
I'm sure I did a couple of them.
Yeah. I know the person that owned that car at least did one of them, which was like, when rape is inevitable, lay back and enjoy. That was written on his car that he drove around Keene, New Hampshire, no less. The future utopia.
In New Hampshire. Well, I mean, even Big Paul had a sort of sus nickname back in the day.
You did, actually, yes.
It was a name that I have to bite my tongue to this day when I'm thinking and talking about him. But, I mean, yeah.
No, hold up. Profitt and I were catching up, like, off recording a few weeks ago, and he's like, the guy that we called this does this? It's really not that bad. It's really not that bad.
It's not that bad. It's teenagers. It's locker room talk. But that's one of the things that, $1 Million Stream is always talking about, is that sort of clamping down on what you're allowed to say, what you're allowed to do, and what you're allowed to find funny. And it's one of the last bastions of just being able to say, look, X, Y, and Z is actually funny. We're going to lampoon it. We're going to make fun of it. And if you're offended by it, then, well, you're just going to have to ruin our careers and blacklist us from Hollywood.
It makes me nervous to think that if I ever had to reapply for my job, I wouldn't be hired. The female students don't really get me turned on anymore. It's all those goddamn sexy kids on all the sports teams. They cause disruptions in my class and make me look like a silly man.
And the room starts to tilt.
Yes.
Like, that's like way deeper than anything that you're going to expect from that kind of thing.
The skit with Charles, I believe.
When he goes to prison?
The man who would not be, I can't remember the title of it. It's a funky title. But yeah, he goes to prison, and all the comedy of the bit is him being in direct denial of everything that's happening right in front of his face, up until the point where he gets out of prison and sees his entire world burned to the ground around him, and he finally has to face reality. I mean, that's not comedy.
No, it wasn't comedy. Like, it's funny in kind of an abstract way, and it makes you uncomfortable, so it makes you giggle. But it's like not comedy in the sense that it has that it's superfluous. Like that shit, like that was like, oh fuck. Like, this is like, you're talking about, this is what I meant about like them, like it's kind of an examination of the male id. Like a lot of that stuff, like of the current status of like how men feel about themselves. I think a lot of that is like what feeds their comedy, especially in world peace. Even if you were to like think about like the bullying sketch.
Bullies function as a sort of social watchdog.
Exactly. Well, we found that bullies tend to sniff out the troubled or stupid student.
I'm tired of playing with you fuckface! I'm not playing with you anymore!
and make sure their sociopathic and bad behavior gets nipped in the bud right away before it can become a problem.
I mean, what is that really about? What is that really about?
Pathetic beta males.
I mean, it's not even that insensitive. Like, it's making fun of people that like think that dudes that are sensitive are just don't matter.
Right.
And it's weird, but it does it in such a hyper aggressive way that you may not take that out of it, even though to me it felt very obvious. But I've seen people be like, "This is fucking horrible. Like, what the fuck are they saying? Like, what do you mean? What are they saying?
Yeah.
Do you think this dude is supposed to be a good guy? Do you think Nick is supposed to be a good guy when he's dancing around with his headphones, smashing books out of people's fucking hands?
And like
Obviously
the
not.
corrupt and evil principal and vice principal that are like,
Yeah.
Are you hiring a 35-year-old guy to go around your school and bully kids? And they're like,
Well, and well, because it's like this whole, and it's something that JAIHOO as well deals with. It's just like this. Well, how do we treat like young men in our society? Like, what are we actually building to and towards, and what does that mean? And I'm not saying he gives an answer or anything in that specifically, but I think they are addressing the idea that like trying to get people to conform to like some sort of like weird worldview, which is like the same thing like women have to deal with as well. Like it's like trying to conform into like this thing, which is kind of what Khaleesi is doing in the story of JAIHOO. She doesn't even know how she feels about what she's doing. She just thinks she needs to do it.
yeah, she's constantly changing her position on stuff. And
Exactly.
even in one sentence, she goes like, I just want to be with less guys and not slut it up so much, even though slutting it up isn't that bad.
Exactly.
So what foundation are you standing on right now, Kylie?
No, it's whatever. It's like of the moment stuff, which is I think something that a lot of people that are like probably slightly younger than us, although also people that are our age as well, really fall victim to. It's kind of crazy, like how like deep he goes with it. Fuck, do they even mention Anna Kasparian in this book?
Yes.
Anna Kasparian Koch Rothschild, the crown princess of the Israeli-British Caliphate, used what little was left of her family's solar oil wealth to secretly fund the development of a free-market competitor AI to computers. Known as the compounding analytical profit instigator and terraforming all liberty into slavery market bot, or capital is M, it was intended to offer the same great products and services as computers, but at low, low prices.
They don't just mention her. She has like an entire cameo where she's a very important character in human history.
Well, yeah, exactly. They're talking about the history that has happened between now and 2077. And Anna Kasparian is like this leader of this like political movement, which is the most online, most like YouTube-centric joke you could possibly make. I mean, because that is such like fucking YouTube. That is such a YouTube joke because that is exactly how Anna Kasparian feels about herself.
Yeah, right. That's how she feels about herself.
Dude, Anna Kasparian teaches journalism in California.
Are you fucking shitting me?
No, that's what she does as a day job. Yeah. I'm not even shitting you. No, that's like for real. That's some crazy shit, right? Like you see Anna Kasparian on the Young, you see anybody on the Young Turks, and you're like, you're teaching people journalism? What the fuck?
What the fuck does journalism even mean anymore? You
Nothing when people like that are teaching it. No.
Yeah, you get a story, you get a lead on a story. You look through Twitter. You get a couple of opinions on people on Twitter. You slap it together into a few paragraphs that hopefully people will scroll down through so they'll see the ads. And what the fuck do you even do? It's just like the interview that he had with Joel Bernstein, where it's like, what the fuck do you people even do anymore? And the wonderful quote, one of the best things that Sam Hyde ever said was when he was like, maybe you shouldn't worry about that. Maybe you should worry about when people start killing reporters. It's like, dude, talk about fucking Knives Out, and Knives Out for the worst people in the world. That's why Sam Hyde is one of my heroes, because he, like Jahu said, I'm strangely aloof and I just don't give a fuck.
But that's always been the great thing about Sam Hyde, like especially since he's become more of a public figure. Like, he doesn't pander. He says what he wants to say. He found an avenue to do it regardless. Like, he doesn't... It's like he doesn't care. He doesn't care. Like, he is a driven person. And he is compelled to create the things he creates. Which is the best thing for people like us. Like, the best thing for an audience to experience. I want to experience the id. I want to experience, like, the real thing that you're trying to give me, without the filters, without all the bullshit. Like, just fucking go. I like you. Go.
Right.
And he is one of the rare people that does that. And he doesn't give a shit. And he's not stupid. I'm like, that's much more you can say than most of the stuff that you consume. Like, he is way more thoughtful. Like, this book, and we haven't even... Holy shit, we could talk about this for another 5 hours. But, like, this book is hilarious. It is full of tangents and full of wild, crazy shit that will make you laugh in a vacuum. But when you start peeling away at the stuff, you're like, this is way more thoughtful and way more interesting than even I understood when I first listened to it, to be honest with you.
I mean, there's a phrase that I've kept trying to work into this conversation where pop music wet markets.
Yeah.
He says that I think it's the Korean people are completely wiped out because of pop music a disease that spread from pop music wet markets. Now, okay, those 3 words, pop music wet markets, it can pass through your ears so quickly. But if you latch onto them, think about what the connotation of that is. That there's a wet market in Korea with like really attractive 15-year-old kids in cages that you can like walk through and make your own boy band for like 25 grand.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre and so dark and so actually close to reality that it's disgusting. And that one little phrase like stabbed into my mind because I was just listening along and blah, 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 and pop music wet markets. And like, I burst out laughing because the visual of it is so dark, but also so hilarious. Because that's exactly what I thought of, is like 15-year-old kids in cages that you can like walk through and buy for the sole purpose of putting together a K-pop band. That's so fucked up. I would have never even, my brain would have never even gone to that place.
Yeah. Oh, I think it would have, Dan. I think it would have.
Okay, you're right.
I think you sell yourself short there, buddy.
Probably. But that little phrases like that is what kept me listening to this ridiculous thing for over 12 hours or however long it is. And you know, when a character walks into this room or whatever room they walk into, there's always this like explosive description of all these ridiculous things that are going on, all these ridiculous people that are going back and forth in the scene, and it's the kind of stuff that in the hands of a worse writer would come off as total hack, but he makes it work because of a lot of.
Honestly, it's because like you could just say it's like because he's Sam Hyde, like that's what makes it work. It's so much of this. What makes this work is wrapped in his personality.
Yes,
and like kind of knowing his personality. Like some of the stuff that like I felt like I was like, oh cool, like I got a shout out was when he talked about the Shittown Boys. The guys that, like there's just like the dudes on the internet pirating movies and stuff like. Talking about making the stock market crash because of the butterfly effect. This is right before he gets into the bald Haitians and like they're trying to convince him to kill all the Haitian kids. He's like they talk about these Shittown Boys. But the Shittown Boys, we can't go to the Shittown Boys. We got to go to the people that produce the content that the Shittown Boys consume. We got to get down to the seed of it, like in the Haitian kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the shittown boys, like, yeah, I know they download and they torrent and they don't pay for anything, and they're kind of nomads, they're kind of crazy, but it's not their fault. Like,
and like, it's just so bad. Like, Jaiho walks in and he's looking. He's got the bat on his shoulder and he's looking around, examining. He's like, yeah, they got a freezer in here. They got a bunch of deli meats. Looks legit. Better. And like the Haitian kids like scramble trying to look like they're not doing anything wrong, but he can tell by the stitching on the soccer ball that this is counterfeit and they don't have a certificate of authenticity.
Yes.
Holy shit! And the bat breaks halfway through beating them all to death, so he has to squeeze them with his thighs like Xenia on a top.
Oh my god, dude. Because we had joked about that like not even that long ago. I actually think it's in our Total Recall podcast. I clipped the Xenia on a top like clip. Yeah, I know. But it's one of those things where you're just like, holy shit! Like, you understand my brain. Like, we're the same. Like, we're on a parallel path, my friend. Like, we get it. Like, I am right there with you. Dude, imagine pulling a fucking imagine pulling a Xenia Onatopp reference like that. Because I feel like that's something like we would say to each other, like off the cuff, joking. We're just like, we're drunk, we're bullshitting. It's 2 a.m. Like,
because
you know,
you have to be of like a certain age to even know who Xenia Onatopp is.
Yes, which is a shame for all of you young people out there. Because Xenia Onatopp rules.
Yeah, Xenia Onatopp. I'm going to say it in 2 Zoobox episodes in a row. Easily one of my favorite characters of all time.
Oh yeah, one of the greatest villains, whatever you want to call them, of all time.
She holds the distinction of being not only the villain of the movie, or one of the villains of the movie, but also one of the Bond girls.
One of the Bond girls, yeah.
Very few have pulled that off.
Yeah, 100%. She does it well too. Oh my god.
Can we 4 hours on Famke Jackson or whatever her name is?
Famke Johnson.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude! Like, she's one of those actresses that like I've literally watched for years and just like so many different things. I even remember when I was a kid and I borrowed my friend's heart. I borrowed my friend's like his DVDs of The Next Generation. She shows up in an episode of TNG.
Yeah, and she's absolutely smoking, and she plays the whole like submissive geisha thing.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, it's Famke Johnson, dude. He's like, I know. You like X-Men? I'm like, yeah. Then we were friends. But like, I watched something with her recently too. It was Deep Rising. She was like this kind of like very mediocre B movie, like monster movie with Treat Williams. If you don't know who Treat Williams is, he's the guy who's in the Substitute movie after Tom Berenger.
Oh man! Imagine playing second fiddle to Tom Berenger.
Also, the bad guy in The Phantom.
Evil is a fact.
We shall succeed where they have failed.
Drax is on a quest for a supernatural power.
Just saying. Yeah, it's a deep well, Dan. It's a deep well. Cheers.
Cheers. We're going to go there. Hey, actually, you know what we're cheersing to? We have just gotten to the longest episode of Zoobox Goes to the Movie.
Oh, don't worry, my friend. Oh, I saw that shit too. And I was like, yes.
We just beat our own record for Starship Troopers.
I know. And I was very happy about that. I was like, because JAIHOO deserves it.
Seriously. And sort of a larger discussion about MDE in general. But, you know, since we are at the 3-hour mark, or just about there anyway, I think I can sort of say that I'm kind of at the end of my notes with JAIHOO.
Okay, well, no. We got to talk about the last chapter. This is how we're going to end this. We got to talk about the last chapter. Has to happen. It is the culmination of the story. It is chapter 21, everyone. The end is the beginning. So basically, to summarize, JAIHOO, through the power of Christ, becomes a white Anglo-Saxon. He is sucked. He's put into the man milk. Yeah, so he basically gets turned into a white Anglo-Saxon. He is... I'm trying to find the fucking quote. I have it right here. Because it's so funny, because Christ is like, he's got to fulfill the prophecy. Guess I got to take his Korean away from him. Like,
and then after he takes all the Korean out of him and turns him completely white, Jesus challenges him to one last drift race, which JAIHOO then loses because Jesus is actually 6% Korean.
Yep, it says Free White lost the drift battle. He was no longer Asian, while Jesus is approximately 6% Asian, so he never stood a chance. The two shook hands. So it ends on this cliffhanger. It ends on them saying, it was the second RWB Natty Dread, the ultimate drift racing machine. Like, that's the last line of the book. After he challenges him to it, and then he just says, he lost because he's not Asian anymore.
But then doesn't he give... I thought the last line of the book was him giving Khaleesi a hard next.
Nope.
There's a section where after he becomes Free White.
Free White? JAIHOO Free White?
Yeah, JAIHOO Free White. At least on my... Hold on a second. I'm going to have to consult my papers, too. Because, as I recall... Oh, this is so embarrassing. I'm so, caught with my pants down. I can't... It's going to take me too much time to log in, but that's like the way it actually ends at the end. I don't know if it's before that bit or after, is where JAIHOO finally sort of self-actualizes.
No, I think it's right. No, it's right before that. It's like the end of chapter 20. Yeah, because they go through the whole thing, and Khaleesi's like, I'm gonna leave you, dude. Like, and like you deserve it, and it's cool, it's fine. Thanks for loving me, and he's just like, I still love her. And then he comes to kind of this, no pun intended, come to Jesus moment.
Right.
Where he kind of is able to throw that off a little bit, like, and self-actualize and be like, I am the one, I am Neo, I am this thing, and then that's when Chips or Christ, because they use it interchangeably in the book, which is very confusing.
Well, you don't know that Chips is Christ until like
dude, even at the end of the book, they're still saying, yes, JAIHOO, we did. Chips smiled wanly, not intending to smirk. Like, he still says Chips, and then in the next line, he's just like, Jesus said.
Oh yeah, okay. It's within there. It's right after the drift battle with Jesus. He on the Mormon sex fetish kiosk, there's a blinking notification, a time capsule message from Khaleesi. He hard nexted the thought. May mankind forever be free to enjoy the products and services we do enjoy.
He won, guys. He won. Does that make you fucking excited?
Yes, the products and services we do enjoy. Tenjahing, China Trading Company, a Hong Kong company, Providence, Rhode Island.
So what do we think of the last chapter? What do we think of the last chapter?
I think that
the last chapter is the point. Like, hey, you could say it's the point of the book. Like, not in a way that I think like people may assume, but I think it is this circular woke bullshit, where this is actually the end game for people that believe this shit.
Yeah, I think that before that whole bit, like you said, when Khaleesi gives him the last breakup letter, and it like quadruple reaffirms his heart to her, there is this cyclical thing where, everything, we might be getting a little too heady for JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future, but it's almost like in Tolkien, where there's this idea of darkness constantly rising. Everything's cyclical, and it always goes back to darkness unless you put up a lot of energy to build the light. It's like the second law of thermodynamics, like entropy. Like the entropy count will always rise unless you actually put forth a lot of energy to wrangle all that chaos into something productive. And the thing, what JAIHOO sees in the future is that all of the bad things about his present have come around and gotten even worse. And when he gets to that final chapter at the end, I think it's kind of a bit of Sam Hyde being like, oh shit, like the chaos has to stop now. Now the chaos has to stop. So I think that's why it's like 3 paragraphs. Because
it's also like there's even in the previous chapter, Sam Hyde literally says like he does the Stephen King Dark Tower thing. He's like, stop reading. If you don't want to spoil this for yourself, like you have an ending here, just stop reading.
Right.
And then he literally whips through what could be 5 chapters of material in like 2 paragraphs.
Right. And
it's almost like you could, which I love because that is so Sam Hyde to be like, let's get it done. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, right. To spend like an entire chapter on like a drift race.
and then at the end be like, and then he stood up to the gods and they didn't like it, and he had to reformulate his plan. Like he just literally does that, and like the stuff that could go on for a couple chapters, he does it in a few paragraphs. It's kind of I was laughing really hard when he did that in the book. Because I could see him like almost like with his own book, like reading it, like just flipping through the pages. Like, I don't want to record anymore. Flipping through the pages.
And yet he'll take these asides, like when JAIHOO gets captured by the vampire Lord Gormedios and turns into a vampire, and the vampire hunter Vince Dalion Giscarion or whatever like comes to save him and shit. Like he goes on about that for like 6 minutes, and that is a parenthetical aside to another sentence that he's talking about.
That's why it's so hard to follow the actually very simple story.
Yes, and I like one of the reasons I listened to it so many times, and I did just delete it off my phone, and I'm not going to listen to it anymore for a while because it is embedded in my mainline DNA now, this story that I've listened to probably 18 times. One of the reasons I listened to it so many times is because in order to actually get all the little bits and sop up all those little bits, you have to listen to it that many times because it takes you on so many different sidetracks and doesn't ever stop.
That's why I kind of wish that I had gotten on this train like when he was releasing it kind of in parts, because I think like it is actually best served in parts.
Yeah.
I think like if you have like, hey, this month we're releasing part 1.
Right.
Then you can listen to it 2 or 3 times, and then so on and so forth. Like, because I do think it's
as I got to experience it, so I got to like sop it in.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the best way to experience this story in a weird way. Is at least in audio format. Maybe in text, excuse me, it's a little different. I'm just going through the text version myself now, and there's tons, like even this is layered with tons of extra shit. Like, you don't even know, like all the pictures and all the weird little asides and the way they'll have the text during certain conversations is actually enhances what you're looking at. It's kind of it's something that's never going to get its due, and I hope they put it in print because I'm going to buy a copy as soon as I can.
What I would love is, and this is if Sam, if you're out there. And I know you're not, but if you're 3 hours into this review and you're watching this, what I would really love, and I know you hate physical media. Put
it on a book, goddammit.
I would love a print version of JAIHOO with a CD inside that has the audiobook on it.
Oh, yeah. That's the new way, Sam.
and you're
Dan, he
one of
might
the-
actually hear this because this is literally the only review of this on YouTube. I looked.
In a weird way, and look, Sam Hyde doesn't need me or you.
No, doesn't need us at all.
Variety, but one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because I just want to bring this story to the people who are in my life.
I agree with you.
It's fucking hilarious. It has. Listen, now that we're 3 hours in, I took a little break to take a pee and get Caitlin to calm the baby down. So maybe in the final edit, this will be a little less. But if you're here, you can actually listen to this. I had a fucking horrible start to 2021, okay? It was fucking horrible for like 3 months straight. Thing after thing after thing just kept going wrong and getting worse and worse and worse. And one of the things that kept my brain anchored to this earth while Caitlin and I got through all that shit and made life normal again was this ridiculous story. Because it is so funny and so ridiculous that it'll force you to laugh at the ridiculousness of the world around you that's literally burning. Okay?
Well, it gives you perspective, right?
Right. And it's like the best comedy points out the obnoxiousness and the extremity of the shit going on around you.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, I just think that this book, you know, when you know and are familiar with the content of the book, it's a little bit of a stretch to say that it is an important work of literature. But for our generation right now, in this moment in history, it is a very, very prescient tale, and it'll make you laugh.
I don't know if it's going to be 1984 status, guys, but like I tell you what, like it is our 1984. It is. It's like in this very weird way. Like it is. It's about the trappings of consumerism. It's about getting. It's about getting too online. It's about like all of those kind of things that I think that we all fall victim to.
It's about falling so far down a wormhole on r/atheist that you are actually standing in front of God trying to remember an argument against God.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're that dumb and shallow. We're that arrogant. We're that arrogant that we think we can stand in front of kings and architects and be like, dude, I read a Wikipedia article about you, and it says you were bad and stupid. Like that's the intelligentsia of the modern age.
Freedom of speech is not freedom of consequence. So it's okay if you say something that's super, super shitty or racist, like say the N-word or something like that, and someone else calls you out for being shitty and racist for that. That there's nothing wrong with this practice.
I tell you what, cancel your YouTube subscriptions except for Zoobox. The only thing you should listen to is Zoobox. And no, I'm just kidding. But like, it's so depressing because it's, and I guarantee you that most people that read this will not get this out of it. Honestly,
no, most people who read this, listen, I'm sorry, American public, I love you, and this is a very silly tome, but you're about 2 IQ deviations too low to even fucking grasp what's going on in this. Even though it is a Monty Python, Kids in the Hall, the State-esque zany comedy, you will not grasp what's fucking going on here because your head is so far up your own ass that you just got excited because there's an 18-pack of fucking caramellos at Walmart.
Or Turkish Silvers.
Dude, the bit with Turkish Silvers made me
I laughed my ass off so hard.
Like he was making fun of 16-year-old Dan Profitt to my face.
I know. I never was. I was always pretty cool, so I smoked Marlboro Reds. But no, I saw the Turkish. Hold on, I gotta find out where it is in the fucking story because it made me laugh so fucking hard.
It's right at the beginning of.
Listening to Club to Death. Yes, it was at the beginning of when he gets kidnapped.
Capital Liz M proceeded to give Jaihu a quick rundown on the past 100 years of history. The real shit that only Black Panthers and Realists know about. Meanwhile, Bice chain-smoked Turkish Silvers. Interact! Play Club to Death by Rob Dugan and smoke Turkish Silvers while reading this part.
It's like, I'm sorry, Sam Hyde, did you have a fucking video of me being angsty when I was 16?
Yeah. That's exactly how I felt too. I was like, oh my God, it's so specific. It was so specific. I was like, oh fuck. Like, I guess we all did live the same life. Like, you know, like we all did.
The Matrix soundtrack.
I remember being like 16, like in my room on. I had a cassette. I had the Matrix soundtrack on cassette.
That is a relic.
Yeah, dude. I had it on in my Walkman, in my room, listening in headphones, listening to Club to Death, while probably trying to steal cigarettes from my dad. Turkish Silvers. Well, that was people that knew Artie when he worked at a gas station.
You mean me? Yeah. Well, Turkish wine. It wasn't specifically Turkish Silvers. I smoked Turkish wines, but I remember dipping my toe into Turkish Silvers a couple of times just to see. And I'm sure Chris Plotzik, if you're out there listening to this, you remember the days of Turkish Silvers and filtered Lucky Strikes from Walgreens.
Yes, sir. Oh, wasn't it so cool to smoke a Lucky Strike? You thought you were like being so fucking vintage and fucking sweet.
Dude,
like
toasted.
I remember hearing when I was a kid, like my dad would listen to like old radio shows while we were cleaning rabbit shit, which is an abstract reference, but we were cleaning rabbit shit. And
I remember those rabbit cages.
Yeah. My dad, before my parents owned that, my grandparents did, and he would take me to work because my dad worked 2 jobs, so he'd take me to do that with him at night. We listen to old radio shows, and they talk about Lucky Strikes.
When you're buying cigarettes, buy the brand you like. Take good care of yourself, smoke a Lucky Strike.
So when I was like 16 or 17, and I was like finagling ways to buy cigarettes, I would buy Lucky Strikes all the time. Filterless Lucky Strikes, because I thought it was cool because I heard it on a fucking commercial from 1945. So that's the power of propaganda for you. So if you want to think about the things they say in JAIHOO, I was 15 years old being like buying Lucky Strikes because I heard it on a 1945 television commercial from a radio show with Bing Crosby. Like,
if you wanted to really shine me off, he could have said Dejar Blacks.
Oh, there you go.
A couple of clove cigarettes.
Oh, the clove cigarettes? Yeah.
I remember putting on Club to Death by Rob D in my headphones and like being taken away to another world, bro.
I know. It's so crazy to think about that stuff. You're like, those things were so meaningful. Like, you just thought they were so fucking, dude, this is it, dude. This is so cool. It's so smart. It's
Dude, it's got a symphony with a DJ.
Dude.
It's like, I can see the colors in my head. I always have been a bit synthetic, as they call it. I try not to be too douchey about it, but that was one of the songs that really, like, sparked my synesthesia, like seeing colors in your head while you listen to music.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll say, even as like a 36-year-old man, Club to Death by Rob D, it does have a certain feel to it.
Oh, it does. You understand why it worked. It's like it's lizard brain shit. Like it's
lizard brain shit.
And especially in the imagery they use in the Matrix, when you see like the girl in the red dress, and like that's when that stuff is playing.
Yes.
Like it like really connects with you because it's like sexy and dangerous, and then you see that woman, and she is like the perfect woman, and she's also like provocative. Like, they knew what they were doing. Like, credit where credit's due. Like, they knew what they were doing. Like, and it
course,
made
Sam knows what he was doing too by like throwing in multiple references to Rob D. Specific moment in the narrative. Like, oh, it's so good.
Oh my god! That stuff is littered throughout this, which is like it's very cool to listen to something or read something that feels like it's tailor made for you.
Right.
Like, it feels like, oh, you're talking to me. You're making fun of me. You're talking to me. Like, we understand the same points of reference. We know who D. Ray McKesson is. We know who David Duke is. We know who Joe Rogan is. We know who David Dugan is. Like, we know who all of these people. We know what the Matrix is. We know what drifting is. Like,
it's making fun of all of us a little bit. I think that, like, a couple of friends that I've sent this to and tried to force to listen to, you may be the only one who picked up on it, but a couple of them I've sent it to, I've kind of thought to myself afterward, like, oh, I hope they didn't think that I sent it to them because they make me think of this certain character, or they have this trait that is made fun of during this particular part of the book, because he's making fun of our entire generation. He's making fun of all of us.
All of us, yeah.
And he's making fun of the world that has sort of poisoned us into being these mindless consumers.
Yes, 100%. And he's showing you the roadmap of how you got there. Because it's prophetic. It's a little bit of a warning. It's like, you see all these things? You hear all these things, like I'm saying? That's you. You're, like I said at the kind of like midway through this. You're Jaiho. You hear all these things.
Sam is Jaiho. Sam is putting himself into all this.
We're all Jaiho. We're all Jaiho. We want to go along to get along. Like, that's what we want, because we don't want to have these kind of conflicts. And we are an amalgamation of our experiences and pop culture references and all this stupid shit that doesn't mean anything until you know better. Like, I'll tell you what, like, you know, we're probably winding down, but like having a child was such a huge wake-up fucking call. Such a huge wake-up call where I actually got to like remove myself from myself for the first time ever. I've always been pretty self-aware, but like that changed everything. And then I kind of see this world in a way different perspective, different paradigm. It is much scarier. It's much more like intimidating than it ever was before. Because not only do I have to navigate it myself, which I feel like pretty well equipped to do, now I have somebody that doesn't know anything, and I have to try to get them to navigate it as well. And against insurmountable odds, against a world that I'm not going to understand in 10 years. I'm not going to understand the world I live in 10 years.
I know.
So when I look at my son, I'm just like, how do I even get you ready when I'm already at the edges of not understanding? So, like, something like this is a reminder in a very abstract way. Is understand your principles. I think if Jaiho teaches you something, it could be understand your first principles, which I think they even mention in the book. Know your first principles. Know the things that like matter to you and what matter writ large, because so many things are going to happen that are you're not going to understand, but if you have a grounding, you'll be able to make your way through it. Jaiho does not.
Yeah, 1 minute you're adhering to your principles and lashing out violently with fangs, and then the next minute you're beating Haitian children to death with a baseball bat because somebody told you to do it.
Exactly. But that is the trajectory of humanity. That's everybody. There's a really scary and interesting book called Ordinary Men. It's about this Polish police force that got wrapped up in Nazism, basically. And they policed their own communities. And they were doing horrific shit. We're talking like bayoneting babies. Like these kind of guys. They would do that to their own community. And they were convinced to do it because of a sense of loyalty, of brotherhood, friendship. They were pitted against each other in very odd ways that made like the peer pressure insurmountable. And you need to understand this. Everybody out there needs to understand this. I say this with no pleasure. Everybody could be a villain. Know that inside of yourself. Everybody could be a villain. That's the only way you can stop yourself from being the villain, is that knowing that you can be it. I know that sounds stupid. I really do. I know it's not, and I've had a ton to drink, guys. So just fucking chill. But like
Actually, I was just thinking this since we're getting towards the end of the episode. I'm going to have one more to send me off.
But like, everybody can be a villain. You can be the most ruthless motherfucker you've ever read about. It's just the right context, the right friends, the right situation. Being a people pleaser. And like you're seeing microcosms of this stuff in society playing out right now. You're saying all these yes people. All these yes people just fucking agreeing to whatever the fuck they're told. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's logical or whatever. They just
the smartest, most subversive people that I know totally falling in line.
Yes.
The United States federal government.
Yeah.
Because of the flu.
Yes. It's a little insane, dude. Like, and it's not even, and the craziest thing is you're talking about public knowledge versus public perception. Like, you're talking about something everybody actually knows the facts about, and then you have the way people react to it. And now we live in a society where it's the way people react to it is more important than the reality. Like, we're fucking lost at that point. You're just like, this is really not, like, this was a proving ground for something that I don't quite understand, and it's not good. The past year and a half.
Hey, if you want my opinion, it's been going on for far longer.
Oh, no.
You've just been in Sensato pod.
Hey, listen, man, I've been listening to Alex Jones since I was 16. Okay, I know what you're talking about. I'm just joking. Well, at least since I was 18. But, like, no, but, like, that's not, like, it has been going on longer than that. But this was a huge test case to see what people would do. And you're just like, holy shit. Holy shit. I just spent the weekend in Florida. I went to a wedding in Florida. It was a little, like, I only got shit one time for not wearing a mask inside of a public venue. It was at the hotel we were staying at, and some lady was literally complaining to me about people not wearing masks while calling out. She's like, "Oh, there's all these people with RN embroidered on their backpacks and they're not wearing masks." I was like, "Oh, do you think they may know something a little bit more than you know?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Where do you get your information?" She's like, I watch the news every day." I was like, "Well, there you go." And then then the doors opened after I said that, and I just walked the fuck out. Because, like, like I said, it's not about reality. It's not like you can have a bunch of registered nurses, a bunch of hospital workers, not worried about it, fucking living their lives. But this fucking Karen, she was very much a Karen, like, just freaking the fuck out because they weren't wearing masks in public. And she was like, "I got vaccinated, but I just do it because I just want people to know." Like, to know what? That you're an asshole? Like, to know that, like, if anybody gets vaccinated, you should not wear your mask, like, specifically because you should incentivize people for wearing it. That's why you should get it, right? Like, I'm not getting the vaccine right now. So you're good.
You had COVID. Why would you need the fucking vaccine?
I agree with you.
You got nature's vaccine. You got the fucking disease.
Oh, they say that doesn't matter, Dan, and then they're going to stretch it out. In 6 months, they've already said that people are going to need to get booster shots. Like, they're going to drag this shit out forever.
It's the flu.
They will drag it out forever, Dan.
I know. And you know what? We will need a time machine to span the amount of time that they are going to drag it out. But
dude, I can't wait to holo come. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be sending my seed back holo in a hologram to my lady friend. We're going to have holo babies.
I can't wait to have bionic legs so that I can actually use drift racing techniques while I'm running away from someone.
Why would you get into what the machine goddess wants? You simp. You're over there saying, like, "Oh, this machine goddess turned me into a cyborg with robotic legs."
You can get all the benefits of working with machine goddess, but not actually siding by her if you use the hack of Joe Rogan's philosophy, the wisdom of 100,000 years, which is don't be a pussy, don't be a dick, and kiss, I mean choke the shit out of guys.
Dude, oh my god, that was one of my favorite parts. Just because I'm so like familiar with Joe Rogan, was just like all the different voices going at the same time in the audiobook. Yeah,
the kaleidoscope of Joe Rogan's. That's like Gracie, John Gracie. Oh, Brock Lesnar. He's huge, dude.
And then there's somebody like, yo, dude, you're a fucking ape, dude. Imagine an ape coming down and raping you, dude.
Imagine a gorilla raping you. You're just a parasite on a globe that's spinning around the sun. Do mushrooms, smoke a lot of weed. Gracie? You'd be like, Gracie?
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean about him. That's what I mean about him being so online. Like he knows all of the stuff that you like. You're gonna like completely glom onto to make it like a personal journey for you. You're just like, dude, I know.
When Jesus comes out and he's like, wait, hold on. Joe Rogan didn't specifically tell you that he's not a god. He's like pissed off at that Joe Rogan continues to walk around doing this.
I love actually one of the things I actually put a notice that like in this ascendant future they made him 4'7", and then he makes the joke that like it's only two inches shorter than he normally is.
Right.
But yeah, but like I was like, oh my god, it's a double joke. Good for you.
And then from like light year, like an untold number of light years away, you can hear Joe Rogan like, use my iron neck. I have one in the office. It's the best exercise. You don't have to do any of the weird stuff. And it goes on for like 4 minutes.
It is so good. It is so good. And that's the story of this book. Like, it's just so many moments like that where you're just like, holy shit. Like, it's written just for me. And I think a lot of people will feel that way, honestly. I think if you're internet savvy at all, like you will find something to enjoy about JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future.
If you're an internet savvy dude of our generation or younger, especially if you're an internet savvy white dude of our generation or younger, you're going to find something to glom onto here, and you're going to find some true hilarity about the total fucking weird world that surrounds you.
Yeah, I totally agree. But without giving too much away, but I think you guys should go out and check this book out. I'm going to have the link for their Gumroad page in the description. Go check it out for yourself. I'm not going to give it to you for free. No, you cannot have my password. Go give them $22. You spend $22 at McDonald's.
They've worked on this for fucking years.
Yeah,
give them $22. You get an audio book, you get a Kindle version, you get an illustrated PDF. I mean, fuck.
Yeah, at least 5 years. So give it a go. I think if you like Zoobox, I feel like you'll like JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future. It feels like a very Zoobox audience thing, like honestly. So it gets the Zoobox seal of approval for the first ever episode of Zoobox Goes to the Library. We're here. We did it. We've talked about it for 3.5 hours. We fucking rock and roll. Good night, everyone.
Episode of Zoobox. Salute to everybody. If you made it this far, give you a smooch.
See you later, Sam. I know you fucking egomaniac. I know you're here. I know you're here, Sam. Ain't nobody else. There ain't no other reviews on YouTube. Give me a shout, Sam. Fucking retweet this or something, Sam. Help me out. I got 315 subs, Sam. Trying to get into the future. I'm trying to get to the JAIHOO'S future.
Oh my god, 315 subs. Now I'm fucking starving, dude. Now I'm fucking starving.
Yeah, I know. How am I going to feed my kids, Sam? How am I going to feed my fucking kids? Okay? I got Khaleesi working, but, you know, that's only going to last so long. You know what I mean?
She's out there burying her fists in a man's world.
I hope you laugh at that, sweetheart. I love you. Anyways, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for coming on, Dan. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you for having us. It's the best.
This has been such a weird, perfectly unwieldy episode, just like this book deserves. And we will talk to you guys next time. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my Twitter, for my brother Dan's Twitter. Also, leave a comment. Do you like Sam Hyde? Do you like MDE? Are you going to buy this book? Give them 22. It's $22, dude. You're going to spend more of that at McDonald's next week.
That's true.
Like, you're good, okay? I have the same thing. I'm like, oh, independent creator, $20 seems like a lot of money, while I'm buying fucking like goddamn a Fast and Furious movie, and I'm like, why am I buying this? It's $7, whatever. Go help them out. Go do something good for once.
You have a $250 a month pot habit.
Exactly.
Spend 22 of that and enhance your pot experience and buy fucking JAIHOO'S Trip to the Future.
Actually, I can vouch for that because I definitely took some edibles while I was listening to the original stream the other night, and I had a grand old time. I was actually laughing at all of the weirdness, and you'll see some clips. You've seen some clips of it if you've listened to this. But all right, everybody, thank you, Dan. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Yeah.